And welcome everybody to GLOBEBUSTERS. Flat Earth, it's not rocket science. I am your host, Bob, Xanadude60, and we are back with another great show for you today. And I realized that I didn't make it on last week. My son Jaron brought home some awful crud from school and then proceeded to give it to me, so I wasn't feeling too well last week, so we just decided to go ahead and take the week off, but we are back this week, and hopefully we'll make up for some of the stuff that we didn't do last week, even though Jaron seems to have covered it. So before we get to that, let me go ahead and introduce my co-host. First up, we have Jaron from Jaronism. How you doing today, Jaron?
Doing fantastic, Bob. Yourself?
Doing good. At Windows Update, I got one of those this morning too. It took freaking forever.
Yeah, I don't know what took so long, but I'm back. Computer seems to be working fine, so everything's good.
Excellent. Sounds good. And also we have Iru Landucci from the land of Argentina with us. How you doing today, Iru?
Hello guys, great. And every time Windows update is like NSA, FBI, CIA, NSI updating.
I know. Well, when Windows 10 first came out, I told a lot of my customers, like, no, you don't really want to get that, because I coined it Windows Spy Edition.
Yeah.
I don't think
Spy Edition.
I don't think I need to say anything more about that. Anybody that knows anything about Windows 10 knows it should have been named Windows Spy Edition, but
Yeah. Cold War Edition.
Yeah. That's funny. All right. So, wow, Jaron, lots of things. Well, first thing I want to say is congratulations. Oh, wait, hold it. Morgile is not here today because apparently Morgile must have gotten that crud too, because he is not feeling good today. He gave us a message a little bit earlier, said he was feeling under the weather, and probably would not be on the show today. So we hope you feel better, John, and we'll probably see you next week. So, all right, so there's that. So next up, want to give you guys a congratulations. I guess we kind of have to give ourselves a round of congratulations. GLOBEBUSTERS today just hit 40,000 subscribers, which is awesome. And GLOBEBUSTERS 2 simultaneously hit 6,000 subscribers. So even though we are being censored all get out, we're still growing. But I have to tell you, when they started censoring us, which was right about the time we got the strikes, because the last time when we were at 39,000 subscribers, we had just rolled over to 39,000 subscribers about a week before we got our strike. So it has taken almost over 4 months to gain 1,000 subs, and before that we were doing it at the rate of about 100 per day. So wow, are they really crunching down on us? But we made it, 40,000. That's kind of cool. So congrats, guys.
Yeah, thanks. That's so awesome, and thanks everyone who listens. That's really awesome. Awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, so a couple things that we've talked about, and Jaron actually just brought this up, and it's funny you brought it up, Jaron, but I was thinking about it also. But you, on your TFR show, have gone from 3 hours to 2 hours. Why did you do that?
Well, I think that 3 hours just seemed, well, from a host standpoint, a little bit long. Sometimes I would be repeating myself or even saying things in the same show that I'd said earlier in the show. So I'd had a few people that said, hey, do you think you'd ever move it to 2 hours? It's easier to listen, and I don't have 3 hours to listen, but I want to hear the whole thing. So just a lot of people saying things like that, and so I just decided to shorten it up, and it flew by last week. So I had mentioned that maybe we should do the same thing with GLOBEBUSTERS, because I've had a few people ask that we do that. So I just brought it up, thought maybe we'd kick it around.
Yeah, well, I've also had that, complaint / suggestion a few times, that, if we kept a little bit shorter, that we may get a little bit wider viewership. I don't know. And then, of course, there's the other side of the camp that says, no, the more the better. And there's a lot of those, too. I mean, honestly, they would sit there and listen to us all day long, I think, which God knows why, but...
Yeah. With my channel is the same. I made some hangouts from 3 hours to 6 hours, and strange because the more view are the longest hangouts. which is something that surprised me because I mean, 6 hours of a video has more view than the 2 hour compilation or 1 hour show. But
Yeah.
it's a little bit strange. Seven through thicker, something like that. The channel that always trying to tie up the more important part of the
Oh
show.
yeah, Seventh Day
He,
Truth Seeker. Yeah.
yeah, he make a great work trying to tidy up the information.
Yeah, he really does. He's that's he he is so good to us. He's absolutely amazing. His name is Rick, and he is the Seventh Day Truth Seeker channel. And of course, if you guys don't know about him, he takes our long Globebuster shows, and he breaks them down into smaller, more digestible little segments. And beyond that, he enhances them by, if I say something and get a little nebulous and refer to something else, he will actually go back, find that reference. I mean, seriously, Rick knows our shows better than I do.
Yeah,
And I mean a lot better
yeah.
than I do. It's amazing where he pulls this stuff up. I'll refer back to it, and somehow, he'll go back to that episode and pull it up and integrate it into the show. Or if I refer to a clip, he seems to know exactly which one I'm talking about, and he will go and pull that up. So that's really cool. But yeah, I think you may get a lot more views on the longer shows, Iru, but if you look at the actual watch time of them, it seems like the watch time degrades fairly severely when you get into the really long shows.
Yeah, no, no. In fact, I believe it's better, a shorter version because with 2 hours is good enough to make a hangout.
Right, get
That's
all
my
the
opinion.
information and get all the points in. I agree.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd rather be trying harder to get more information into a smaller amount of time than the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And maybe at some point if we cut them down, I've even kind of toyed with the idea of going back to, back in the earlier days we had shorter shows, but we did a couple a week, and I may or may not do that. I'll have to think about it, but again, I tend to agree with the idea that you will capture people's attention span longer, for longer periods of time if you have shorter shows, and that's just kind of normal. Not everybody can sit through everything, and not only that, even if they're listening to the long show, um, they'll go and they'll do something. They'll go to the bathroom or they'll go make food or whatever, and then they'll miss out on a lot of it. And that's where, of course, Rick's work, comes in really handy in cutting those down to digestible pieces. But so we're going to experiment a little bit with it. And if you guys have suggestions, by all means, put it in the comments. We will listen because what we really want to do is be effective, and not necessarily just be flapping our gums for 3 hours and not actually getting our content out, the message that we want out. And even a lot of times, people that do watch it, they will seem to be oblivious about some of the stuff that we've covered, and that could be because a lot of people in the chat will be more interested, I think, in the chat than they are in what's going on in the show, because the chat has a life of its own in any hangout.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah. So
In fact, something that happened here in Argentina is that a lot of YouTube channels, new YouTube channels, come from the people in the chat, and they create their own YouTube channel because they meet together and share information on the chat. So, hey, I'm gonna create a YouTube channel, and a lot of YouTube channel here are created by the people on the chat that they maybe never thought about being in YouTube, sharing this information.
yeah, indeed. Okay.
I'm just in awe watching this J Tolan Media stuff. And it's just amazing. It's like just crazy that you can see. I mean, the answer's right there in front of you.
I know. Honestly, just watching his channel alone, single-handedly, annihilates the globe. It really does. And people can't claim refraction. They can't claim any stupidity, essentially. I mean, look at this stuff. He's seeing across, all the way across the Sea of Cortez, to Baja California. 2 to 500 miles in HD. It's crystal clear. And if you guys saw his last video, I think it was up to 1,200 miles, and that was speculative. You know, it may or may not have been that. But the fact that we are even seeing these ludicrous distances at, you know, anywhere between 30 and 40,000 feet tells you straight up, you know, and this stuff should be hidden behind miles of curvature, and it's just not happening. I mean, you know, JT just kills it in these videos. I absolutely love his work. And I do know that they're going to be doing, you guys may remember Rob Skiba and Rick Hummer's video that they did at the Great Lakes, looking across at the Chicago skyline, you know, trying to determine whether or not it was a mirage, ha ha ha. And of course, they determined that it wasn't, but Rick has got somebody out there with a modified P900 to do infrared, and they're going to redo those observations and see how often they can actually catch it, you know, because they can't claim mirage every single day, even though we know damn well it's not a mirage. But it should be interesting to see it in infrared at any rate.
Yeah, that'll be awesome. When's that? Do you know?
You know, I think Nathan Thompson is out there right now. They're doing it as we speak.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. Yeah, he came into the FE Core meeting the other day or yesterday or whenever it was, and told us about it. And yeah, Nathan Thompson's going to be out there doing it with him, and of course Nathan Thompson will also be at the Flat Earth International Conference coming up in about 1 month from now. Oops.
Oh no, you're right. A little bit over a month.
Yeah, November 15th and 16th, a month and a day, right? So yeah, that's coming right up, and you know, I'm totally looking forward to it. So many people are going to be there. I'm really, really excited to meet Alex, Flat Earth Man, and he's got some magnificent stuff, you know, planned for everybody. And like I said, I was fortunate enough to see a preview of what he's going to be showing, and wow, zowie, it's going to be awesome. So I'm totally looking forward to it. And speaking of that, Robbie wanted me to play a promo for it coming up, so I'm just going to go ahead and run that really quick. So this is the latest promo for the FEIC 2018 conference coming up in Denver. So let me play that, and then we will get back to talking about it. So here we go. All right, excellent. Okay, very good. So yeah, that's definitely coming up in November 15th, 16th, 2018, about a month from now. And like I said, if you guys have never been to one of these conferences or meetups, they are a lot of fun. We don't necessarily, you know, come out and break with the latest and greatest news about Flat Earth or anything like that there. However, it is, not only is it an excellent opportunity to socialize and for people to meet each other and, you know, shake the hand of their content providers and just, you know, be able to kind of face-to-face pitch in ideas and talk about things. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts about it, you know, like when we do the VIP dinners, you know, sitting down and breaking bread with people and just sitting there. And we sat, you know, in Canada and in Raleigh, we sat there for hours, absolutely hours, just talking and talking and talking. And, you know, some of the people had some fabulous ideas, some really good thoughts on it. And it's really not only the social occasion, but there is an information exchange, you know, that is just excellent and a lot of fun to participate in.
Yeah, the atmosphere that you live there is amazing. I never thought it when I was the first time in North Carolina, and I met a lot of people. You make really good friendships and, you know, contact, and like you say, it's not just about the information that you bring to the table. It's you know, meet together and share, you know, real life situations. It's not just the conference itself.
Yep, Absolutely true. It really is great. And so, are you? You'll definitely be there. Are you pretty much all prepared? Got your plane tickets and everything ready to go?
Yeah. I going to buy the ticket this week, and I have everything arranged. And anytime you say it's 1 month left to the, something inside my stomach start to boil, and yeah, because I have my travels in the USA airports and things like that, and I believe we are all marked, right now. So, and the dollar here is some part inside me it wants to be the conference tomorrow, because maybe in 1 month the dollar here jumps to 60, and it's going to be a little more difficult. But no, talking seriously, I am really prepared, and I'm going to be a presentation about the electrical universe, so we can share some thoughts with you, Bob.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, yeah. That's. I think that's a great presentation, and I thought about doing that, but I really decided that I wanted to kind of go into um, and elaborate. We did do a show on this about the pseudoscience of astronomy, astrophysics, and cosmology, which are absolute pseudosciences. And I'm going to kind of do it in honor of a special guy that was at the Raleigh conference that wrote an article. It kind of torqued me off, and so I'm going to kind of uh, go after him a little bit, even though I'm not going to do it, personally. But let's just say I'm going to go after his profession, and I think
Wow.
it's valid. It's absolutely valid because let's face it, astronomers, astrophysics, cosmology, they can't put their hands on anything. The rate at which they make assumptions is over the top crazy. And there's absolutely no scientific method that can even be applied. So to call those fields science is a joke. It truly is. So that's what I'm going to be doing mine on. So
Yeah, in fact, I believe after Einstein, theory of the general relativity, it come the career about theoretical physicist. Because I believe it's like, of course, all the time was theoretical physicist, but it's like in the last decades are, like they changing, like writing books about the Lord of the Rings. It's something like that. I mean, they make some kind of assumption that are impossible to reconcile with reality.
yeah, yeah,
But they have the title. No, I am an physicist, a theoretical physicist. So they have that title, in the pocket, so they can jump and say whatever they want without any kind of basis on reality. It's like writing a book of the Lord of the Ring. Sorry.
I know. And the great that's one of the reasons why in the show that we did I don't know a couple months ago called Sunday Mass that I took great pleasure in taking these PhD highly promoted by the media people, astrophysicists, and just putting their words right up against the other that were in stark contrast, and just showing the nonsense of it. I mean, it's so easy to do because, everybody knows that even mainstream science seldom agrees. In fact, never. I will say never agrees ultimately on one particular model of anything. There's always somebody that's got a different take on it, and these guys are all mainstream, trained and everything, and everybody's got their own opinion, and their criticism of each other is really quite harsh because everybody thinks they're right, and they think that they have just got the lock on exactly how everything works. And, that differs widely from people in flat Earth. We openly admit that we have different takes, different approaches, different ideas about it. And even the science is different because there are different ways of applying science. And so, for anybody to claim that one particular thing is absolutely the way it is of course ludicrous. Of course, we all have our beliefs. I have my belief in the electrical makeup of the universe, And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, but it certainly doesn't mean that I'm right either. I could be absolutely dead wrong, but this is kind of where my research takes me, and that's what's beautiful about flat Earth is that we can hear these different takes, and some people every once in a while will come up with a really really amazing take on stuff. And in fact, I was watching Robbie's new documentary that he released last week, and Amber Plaster and her husband Tony were in the chat. And so Tony and I were kind of chatting back and forth, and he said, "Hey, Bob, I want you to check something out." And it's basically this binary type of model of the universe, and not only of the universe, but how it's represented in Scripture. And of course, I'm not a religious person, but I do find things like that absolutely fascinating. And when I watched his video, not his video, it was actually oh gosh, I can't remember the other channel. That he said go and find it on this other channel, and it's right on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, when I watched it, I was so impressed, at the way that he thinks about this stuff, that honestly, I'm going to do a show on it. I think I want to have him on and actually have him do this presentation, because it was absolutely mind-boggling. It had, it definitely touched into religion a little bit, but it went so far beyond that. And that just tells me that Tony is super intelligent. He may be very religious, but he's also thinking way outside the box. And his thoughts really made a lot of sense to me. And I love stuff like that. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, it'd be an awesome.
Yeah.
I'd look forward to that. And I look forward to the conference. I know David Weiss wanted me to mention that the get-together that we'll be having at the Billboard will be at 3 p.m. on Wednesday, and that you can follow to get or follow at the FE Podcast on Twitter for updates on that one if you're heading out there. So Wednesday around 3 p.m. at the Billboard. So check out that for updates. And I'm just really excited to be doing another presentation. I'm going to be attacking NASA again. Going to show the history of NASA and where it got started and what it has evolved into, and just kind of show how a compartmentalized government institution can fool the world, even though they employ 40,000 people. So I'm excited to kind of put them on blast and also kind of call them out for a couple of the things that we all think should be the case, like a 24/7 view of the Earth and a view of the Earth from the moon, and all the things that they've never provided, and kind of put it out there and let the media hear it and see what happens from that. So I'm excited to go.
Yep.
Nice. Real nice.
Nice. Okay. So, all right. So moving on, let me go ahead and stop this, and we covered that. That's another good one. So, Jaron, I gotta bring it up. Last week, what I was going to do was, I was going to actually do a presentation, and I had it ready and everything, and I just felt so crappy, but this literally is what I was going to do the presentation on. So I was thrilled when you decided to do it on your channel later on that night. But the 7 things that prove the Earth is flat according to flat earthers. I think you did a fabulous job on it, and it's so much so that David made this kind of a mashup of it, and put a little music behind it, and it kind of went viral, and everybody started posting it. So you did a great job on it. Congratulations on that, and thank you for doing that for me, even though I'm sure you didn't do it for me.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I remember seeing, I think it was you that posted it in the
It's
in
Cami.
the
Is
Oh,
Cami.
Cam.
And she found it for me, so yeah, all credit goes to Cami on that one.
And all you need to do is read that article once and you're just pissed. So I think that I sat down for early to check if we were going to do the show, and then I saw that instead, watched that, and was just outside in the garage fuming and said, "That's it, I'm going live." I tear this apart because it's just nonsense. I mean, at least I don't mind if people have a different opinion than me or have a different belief than me. Like, that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But when you completely don't understand my belief and you trash it for other reasons and build straw men and make it look really ridiculous, then I have a problem. Because if you've got a problem with what I believe, then that's fine. Come at me and say, I don't like what you believe for this reason and that reason. But when it's 7 things that I don't even believe, it just pisses you off. It's like, then don't, or I don't want to call myself a flat earther, or don't say that this is about flat earthers, because it doesn't connect with me at all. I don't believe any of those things.
Yeah. Yeah,
Or
absolutely
at least
true.
in the way that they put it out there. Like this article or this line here that you're showing right here, where it says the zetetic method. I've never heard anybody try and describe the zetetic method in a negative way, because it's just ridiculous to do so. I mean, it's basically saying that we should have theories and then build all of our beliefs on these theories of men long ago, when the zetetic method says to just observe and experiment and make your your observations and your conclusions based on that. And so I've never heard anybody come out and say, oh, they try to use the quote unquote zetetic method. It's like, what's wrong with that, you idiot?
Well, because they say, well, because the system says that your senses rule supreme, and maybe our senses don't rule supreme, but we can certainly trust them most of the time, unless there is some mechanism that is designed to intentionally deceive our senses. Other than that, I think they work pretty good.
Yeah, me too. And the only reason that people would say our senses don't work good is they'd always start saying, well, you don't feel you're spinning, but you're spinning on the ball Earth. Or, you don't think you can see very far, but those stars are 25 trillion miles away. So if you've already given yourself into these beliefs of the universes they've taught in never ending space and crazy distances, and the sun is 860,000 miles wide, if you believe all that stuff, then it's very easy to kind of fall into that trap, because you've already kind of agree. So then you're like, oh yeah, my senses don't really work because I look up at the sun and it seems small and it seems close and I don't feel like I'm spinning. Well, that's the problem. Is it where are the examples where our senses really fell us bad?
Yeah. Yeah. In
Science
addition,
science is supposed to be zetetic. That is what science is supposed to be. And so for somebody to make fun of it and I freaking love science, like, oh, the zetetic method, it's like, yeah, well, the reason you don't like zetetic method is because it doesn't include the theorizing first and the hypothesis and having to build off of former knowledge, which is great if it truly is former knowledge that is truth. We're in the camp that says, no, we think some of these things have passed, and craziness like Einstein and relativity is the cause of all these problems, and things like gravity. I mean, when you've given everybody this secret weapon, gravity, to use in every case, you can never question it again. So it is no longer science because it must be true. Gravity has to be true. It has to be a reason that the Earth is a ball, and they're just not going to let go of it.
yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Well, and plus they completely misrepresent things, and we'll get to something else that completely misrepresented us. I'm sure you guys saw what David posted in our chat earlier, but they say that, well, yeah, your senses, the Earth is moving so slow, and they say that even though flat earthers are claiming that we should be able to feel some of these motions, and I believe honestly that we should. Of course, the rebuttal to that is like, well, if you're on an airplane and you're flying, do you really think that you can feel that you're moving there? Well, no, not really. I mean, yeah, the vibration of the plane and everything, but take that away, and it would be pretty difficult to feel that you're moving. But that airplane is flying in a straight line. Now, if the airplane banks or turns, then absolutely, when you get some angular acceleration going on there, then you're going to feel it. And then they go back into the argument of, well, the Earth is only turning at 0.000694 RPM, and so you would never feel that. Well, yeah, especially if you're at the center of it. Of course, if you take that and extend it out to 4,000 miles, then you're doing well over 1,000 miles an hour. Chances are you would find that. But the one thing that I really find difficult to believe that we cannot feel, and John has expressed this on several occasions, and so have I, is that if the Earth is going, and we'll just take a slice, we'll just take the 67,000 mile an hour velocity of the Earth allegedly going around the sun, and just kind of picture this in your mind, guys. If you're standing on one side of the sphere, say you're on the equator and you're on one side of the sphere, and the sun is cruising around, or the Earth is cruising around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour, and gravity would then be pulling you by your feet at 67,000 miles an hour, and then of course 12 hours later the Earth has turned a half a turn, 180 degrees, and at that point within 12 hours you are now being pushed at 67,000 miles an hour around the sun. So basically what that has done is we've gone from being pulled at 67 to pushed at 67, which gives you 135,000 miles an hour change in speed, from 67,000 down to zero and then back up to 67,000 the other way, and that is 134,000 miles an hour, right? Of total change, and if you divide that by 12 hours, that's over 11,000 miles an hour. I'm sorry, but I think you should be able to feel that. And maybe somebody can come back and tell me why that's not so. But looking at it in a common sense approach, I think that that's a pretty good argument that we should not only be able to feel it, but it should whip us off very violently. So.
No, in fact, I believe, anytime they trying to reduce the feeling that we need to have to feel that rotation of the Earth, it's based on, I mean, we need to think about in terms of scale, because if you go 1 million kilometers away and they trying to show it, hey, look how the rotation of the Earth occur in 2 minutes, and you even notice, of course, because you are 1 million kilometers away from the GOES satellite or whatever you want to see. But the problem is that here on Earth, at our scale, the Earth rotates 450 meters per second, and that's if you are, if you are at that size, at the human size, you must be feeling that. You must be, try. You can measure that. You must have something to measure that supposedly rotation and translation, because it's like you say, when you are in the plane, if the plane banks over to one side, you are going to feel it, and we are spinning and translating around the sun supposedly. So you can detect any kind of that measure of that rotation or translation. And I don't know if you saw the Grace Tyson talking about why in the football game, American football game, the kicker was able to take the score because the Earth beneath was rotating and hit. Did you see that?
Yes. How absurd.
So, exactly. So why that the Coriolis effect is, present in 1/3 of an inch, and then when you're trying to put that, in real life and say, okay, man, the plane has individual thrusters. The plane is leaving the reference, the rotation frame of reference, and controlling by itself. Why it's not going to happen that the plane, travel east to west, taking first the objective, then when the planes do the other thing?
Yeah, that's the thing. They have that problem. It's the same thing I've tried to point out numerous times, and I still don't think fully that all flat earthers completely understand it. But you're absolutely right, Erut, that you can't have one and the other.
Exactly. But this guy talk about the speed that produce a kick of a player to a balloon. I mean, how is the speed to independent, the balloon from the rotation of the Earth, supposedly? And you can't do it with a helicopter or with a plane. Right. But the guys are really surprised when the Grace Tyson tweet, hey, that score was done because the rotation of the Earth was traveling to blah, 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 and the balloon hits the blah, blah. And everybody, oh, congratulations, that is a great, analysis. I mean, what happened? It's amazing. The lack of sense of reality that the people have is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely true. And again, of course, if the football would be able to tell the difference, like I said, you would think that our vestibular senses would be able to pick that up, especially, I mean, it's just double speak, all of it. It absolutely is. And, it gets so tiring, trying to combat that constantly. And in fact, another example, and I really hadn't planned on covering this, but I will kind of show everybody. David put this particular clip in the chat a little while ago. So CBS Sunday Morning, and it's titled "The Flat Earth Movement: People Who Ignore Science." And oh yeah, there it is. Okay, and if you guys haven't seen this hit piece yet, oh my God, it is so bad. Jaron, I don't know if you got a chance, or if you got a chance to watch this, but people who ignore science, it's like, really, that's absolutely unbelievable that they would say this. And I have to tell you something. Robbie sent me, actually had a reporter that was wanting to interview, I guess, me before the conference, and she is from CBS Channel 4 here in Denver. Um, and it's stuff like this, honestly, that makes me not even want to talk to her. I have not called her back yet. I'm not sure I'm going to call her back. Or if I do, I may say, look, here's my problem with you, and show her this particular, CBS, another CBS affiliate, right, or just CBS corporate, that has completely misrepresented every freaking thing that we say, and in an effort to make fun of us, criticize us, make us look stupid in every way. And it's like, because this is exactly what the mainstream media is all about. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not exactly thrilled to get back with that woman that called me. Um, and, I don't know if I'm going to or not. And I'd love to hear some comments from people as to whether or not what you think I should do or how you think I should handle it. But honestly, this kind of stuff, and why would they do this? If why would they make false claims and completely misrepresent us unless we're onto something? They never, ever, ever venture to the scientific points that we have. And in fact, because of the fact that they censor GlobeBusters so heavily, and a lot of our stuff is science-based or is critically analyzed, they don't want anybody going anywhere near us. And I firmly believe that. I'm not saying that out of ego or anything. I'm simply saying that this is the way we operate, and we are avoided like the plague. And I'm thinking to myself that this woman is probably just, the only reason she wants to talk to me is she wants to cherry pick anything that I say and completely misrepresent it. So again, if we are so silly, then why is it that they have to completely misrepresent everything that we're saying? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Bob, I warn you that the same thing happened to me down in North Carolina last year, where I had an interview with a girl from somewhere in Australia, the Sunday Morning Herald, or I don't know what the name of the place is, Sunday Morning Sydney or something like that. But yeah, she totally did that. Interviewed me, came across as somebody who was, she said, oh, I'm open-minded, and just asked me a lot of questions, but then went back and wrote a huge article in which she just cherry-picked different things and basically built straw men the whole time and laughed them away and had a great old time doing it. And that's when I just said, well, from now on, I'm going to tell people that if they want to interview me or whatever, that I want to see the final piece. Well, all of a sudden, none of my stuff is actually making it anywhere, so it shouldn't surprise me, and doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. So yeah, that's why I have real mixed feelings about whether or not I want to talk to her. I mean, yes, I agree, we want the media exposure, but me
Oh,
personally,
maybe Leon, sorry for interrupt you,
no, go ahead,
but
Aaron.
here it's happened the same. I have a few articles that people interview me and then they change or misrepresent what I'm saying. But the thing here in Argentina, I'll start changing. I have been really busy, being interviewed by radio shows, and they are really getting crazy in terms of how the fidelity of the content that I said is taken. I mean, they are changing this kind of trying to misrepresent it. And also something that you can do is, record the same interview that she's going to make you. I mean, not recording secretly. I mean, you say, okay, I'm going to record for myself also, and then you can have evidence to show the people how they are doing the things that are doing. I mean, you can use this
Right.
as a double weapon.
Yeah, use it as a tool or a weapon. It's a good idea.
Exactly. Yeah, and just making once. Maybe if you want to do any more, you don't give any more interviews, but at least you have the proof that what are they doing, and that is also sometimes it's worth it. Show the people how the real things works.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I agree and I understand, but and I hope that woman is actually watching this show, because what I would like to ask these people is, why don't you show something like what we're showing right now? The fact that we can see 2, 3, 4, 500 1,000, 1,200 miles with infrared photography of stuff that should be miles below the curvature. Why don't you cover that? Why don't you cover our laser experiments? Why don't you cover our gyroscope experiments? No, 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 no. You know what they cover? And I'm not saying this is a bad idea. However, it is something that is easily ridiculed, and that would be like D marbles taking the spirit level on the plane. And in context, I understand what he's trying to do, but of course, to the rest of the world, it's like people are just going to look at that and shake their heads, honestly. But they don't ever want to put anything on that would give any credibility whatsoever, to the evidence that we're presenting. And in fact, it's just mostly ignored. That's what I would ask, this particular woman, I guess, from CBS that wants to interview me. So I don't know. You guys tell me what you think, and I'll kind of go from there. But honestly, I'm a little PO'd at the mainstream media right now. Not like I wasn't before, but I really don't like, how they're trying to paint this picture. So,
Yeah,
all right.
same thing. It's like if you have a problem with my real beliefs, and then come at me with those. But the problem is, it never seems to be that. It's always some straw man that they've built up, or all flat earthers think that the Earth is rising at 9.8 meters per second squared, or they all think because there's a flat horizon line that means that the Earth's flat. Just little things like that are not the case. That we all looked at a flat horizon line our entire lives and we thought we lived on a globe. So it certainly isn't because it's a flat horizon line that I think the Earth's flat.
Yeah, and in fact, I think that I did a very, very, very conclusive job of showing on the Flat Earth Sunday Mass show where that flat Earth rising at 9.8 meters per second idea came from. Where did it come from? Albert Einstein. And not to mention the PhD astrophysicist that presented it. It's like, oh, geez, we certainly aren't saying that. They may say that on the Flat Earth Society webpage, but of course we all know what those people are. So yeah, it's just crazy.
But Albert Einstein, he never postulated the facts that supposedly the black holes are even going to exist. But now, they talking about Albert Einstein, that he was a genius, but he didn't know everything. So for him, the black holes are never going to be existed. But now they are existed. So Albert Einstein was wrong, because he's a human and he can be wrong.
Right, and they've also changed the name, of course, because it used to be called a Schwarzschild singularity, right? But so they've even changed the name of it for their, particular purposes. So
exactly.
Whatever. Okay. Next up, Jaron, the other thing that you covered a little bit, and you may want to kind of reiterate it on this show just a bit, is what the status of your FOIA request is, what happened, and where people can find this information.
Yep. Well, they can find, because remember, it was crowdfunded. We had a big donator that happened here on GLOBEBUSTERS for I think the initial $600 or $700, and then the rest of it was crowdfunded through GoFundMe. So I did say I was going to put up those files, and they are under tinyurl.com/NASA FOIA 14. And that is the one that I requested. That's the one that I was looking for. And then they also had sent me an incorrect spacewalk and left it on the hard drive when they sent me the second batch. So that one's on there as well. And that's so tinyurl.com/NASA FOIA 22. So people can go there. It's just a link to archive.org, or you can go to archive.org and search it, and I'm sure you'll find the files under my name. And you can go there and bring up all the spacewalk footage, or you can go to my video, NASA Spacewalk FOIA Request Delivery and Review. And I believe, are those links in the description, Bob? I hope so.
They are in your description. I will put them in the description of this show as well.
Beautiful, thank you. Yeah, so under Expedition 14 and 22, you can go there. It is quite a few hours of nothing, so if people want to go there and watch and decide for yourselves whether or not that's proof that a spacewalk took place on the day they said it did and that it lasted 7 hours, because I basically got ISS footage just like that, with not a lot happening, and you can't even see any astronauts in most of the footage. So up to people to decide for themselves. I mean, for me, as I said, the most disappointing thing about the whole thing is after going through 8 months of headache and emails back and forth and having to send hard drives and then getting shipped the wrong things and then a person quitting the business or, doesn't work in that department anymore and I have to deal with somebody else. For all that, it really just makes it so you never want to do it again. So, that's a big sign to me. That's not the sign of somebody who's open and transparent and a government agency that is on the up and up. When we're talking about a 2006 spacewalk done by a company that gets $52 million a year, and I ask for a copy of the spacewalk that was performed with my tax money, just like you and everyone else's tax money, and it takes that long to get me the footage, and the footage is as crappy as it is and doesn't prove anything. Those are signs to me that help me build my belief system. And for other people who have made every excuse for NASA and will continue to make every excuse for NASA, then that's what their belief system is based on. So, for me, my belief system is based on the fact that they continually drop the ball. They continually can't produce. They continually seem to lie. They lie every day. They still lie and tell you went to the moon. So all those things just are more quivers in my arrow set that tell me that NASA is as full of shit as it gets.
Yeah, no kidding about that. It was ridiculous how little there was on it. It's like, so essentially one could kind of look at the footage that they gave you and conclude fairly easily that really there wasn't any spacewalk at all. They didn't do anything. They didn't show anything. I thought this part was interesting. This little thing in the window here that you can see through.
I don't know what that is.
I don't either. But
occasionally you'll see the astronaut little pop out in the side, and then you can it's almost see-through, like a 2D cardboard cutout or something. It's really sad. And then the other thing is that I was asked in the emails back and forth whether I wanted the audio, and I said, well, yeah, if I want whatever audio goes with the spacewalk, I want that audio. And then she also said, oh, and by the way, it's a Russian spacewalk, and so only one of the spacewalkers had a helmet cam. So I said, okay, which they both seem to be wearing helmets that look like they're the same ones that they always wear. I'm assuming that they all have a camera in there, but whatever. So I got footage, and there's no helmet cam at all. So it just seems like I was kind of shifted around or kind of given just so-so stories so that I would kind of go along. They tried a few times to almost push me away with the first, $1,400 price. Was almost enough to push me away. And then we kind of forced them to produce it, and they did produce it. But again, it looks like it's something you could easily have pieced together with just ISS shots. It wouldn't even be a difficult fool if that's what they were trying to do to me. And then again, 2006, why is this stuff not digital? It makes no sense to me. I don't know what era we're living in. You can look at any kind of organization or TV show, and if you requested something that they put out, go to a baseball team and say, hey, 2 years ago or 10 years ago, you played a game against Chicago there in Chicago, November 9th at night, and they would produce that film for you if you needed it. Now, they're not going to do that because they're not public. They're not paid for with your tax money, so they don't have to listen to you. But with these companies that are, you should be able to go up and say, hey, can I see the spacewalk from 2006? And I can understand if they said, okay, it'll take a couple days, but it took 8 months. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well,
they had to.
And I like to share the screen for the first time in a day. Woo!
Certainly.
Yeah. Hey. I have, I learned from the punishment of Jerem. Yeah, it's really hard, man.
I haven't whipped him in over a year.
Yeah. So I hope you leave me to share the screen on the conference, please.
I'm gonna allow.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I bring you some wine. We can talk. We can talk.
Don't let
but I because I'm rendering the image right now live. Let me just share the screen and wait to finish what I'm going to show. But because for me, a really good method of understanding, some of the bullshit that NASA presents us is, compare with real life. And of course, we know that all the training of the astronaut and the spacewalk are in the swimming pool. And the other day, I'm start to looking into how it's gonna, how is gonna be the situation when you go in really deep in the ocean and trying to fix some of the oil rigs, because you have a lot of these videos to compare. And when you see it, it's practically the same. You have the same kind of camera flickering or glitches. You have the same kind of movement in the tools. You have the same kind of environment, the lighting, that kind of lighting that you see that is light passing through a lot of dense medium, like it's the water. And of course, I'm gonna put in full screen, just let 1 minute to finish the rendering. But I really make quickly a comparison really quickly. I have the project to go a little deeper and try to find exactly the pieces that I want to compare. But I believe you're gonna understand what I'm talking about just in a few seconds. Let me open it. Let me just here it is. You are seeing my screen, right, Bob?
Yep, you are presenting.
Okay, so let me just open here. I have it. Okay, nice. No, because maybe okay, here it is. I mean, putting content, because the left image is from the undersea oil rig, and the right image is from the ISS, random footage that I downloaded from internet from the official site of NASA. And of course, in one side you have a really clean water pool, and the other side you have the real life ocean. Of course, you're gonna have some dirty in the water, but at the first glance you see, and it's the same behavior. In fact, why sometimes we see this blue tint on the images, but when you start to look the movement and the situation is practically the same. Of course, here you have a lot of dirt from the ocean, and I repeat, this is a water clean pool. But when you look at the quality of the image, the lighting situation, the movement, that slow movement of the astronaut and the equipment, because if you are outside in the space and you don't have any kind of fluid resistance, why you move so slowly?
Absolutely.
If you don't have nothing of that.
Yeah, it should be much faster movement. You should be, there's no restriction. There's nothing holding you back, no air in the way. Every movement should be twice as fast as on Earth.
Exactly. In fact, if I show you something of the left image right now, and I say you like, the astronaut repairing the STS 392.5, you're going to believe it. Mm-hmm. If I start to combine some of this first camera view in the left side with some of the right side, you're going to see, and it's practically the same.
And the only reason that somebody might say it looks different is they would say, oh, well, on this side there's rust, and on this side you can tell it's been in the water for a while. And what you were saying is, on the other side, if they're in a filtered pool with distilled water, you're not going to have the same kind of rust effects. You're not going to have the same kind of dirt in that pool. So yeah, I totally agree that I've looked at a lot of this old footage from, it's not even old footage. They have webcams that are, 100 feet deep at these oil rigs. And when you watch them, it's the same thing. It's the same movements. It looks almost identical.
It's almost identical. Exactly. In fact, for example, because I did it, really quickly, but I have a lot here to really compare the situation, and it's just amazing how the image are practically the same. In fact, for example, here you can see the typical particle that's appear, and maybe sometimes they erase from the footage, and maybe sometimes they just appear and floating away or rising up like a bubble. And in fact, sometimes they give like a little hint, because Here I have this video, and tell me if you are listen the audio from the video, please, because it's important.
Not hearing
No,
anything on it.
no, okay. What happened?
I thought I heard a little music or something.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Was a music. Yeah, exactly.
We
You hear that?
Yeah, we heard
Okay.
it just for a brief second.
Okay, no, because I put a play and then I stop. But here, this is an official video of NASA, and of course you're gonna hear like that underwater sound, and they tell you in the face.
I'm just getting my safety cutter on the other side of my IDA back here. Copy, Terry. Well, these are without the pool stanchion.
What did he say?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. No. I'm finished talk, because it said it's like being in the pool, with the exception of the Earth in the background.
Copy, Terry. Well, these are without the pool stanchion. Absolutely, yeah. And it's just like in the pool instead of that, with the exception of that big blue planet down there.
Oh my God.
And it's just in the face. And in fact, when you see this, for example, when you're going to pay NASA and pay, and you pay the ticket to enter in the Disney World of NASA, you can clearly see here how they can make it with so many techniques. I mean, you can have green screen underwater because it exists. There is a really normal technique to film underwater films. So you can have green screen underwater. You have you can have a screen underwater. You can have a glass with a screen, in the other side of the pool. I mean, there are NASA that have $50 million each day, and they have facilities that are really big, and they can make it really easy to put, some kind of image in the background of a swimming pool, and you're never gonna notice. You're never gonna notice that with the human, eyes of regular people who doesn't understand the computer graphic and things like that. So, I just want to share this because it's really clear. They are telling us in our face.
Yeah.
It's like be underwater, but with the exception of the Earth in the background. And that's, I can go deeper and deeper showing some techniques, but I just want to show the comparison of this situation, that be underwater and be in the waters above.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, hey, look what Jaron can do with the water in his toilet, right?
Yeah.
The poopala.
The poopala.
The poopala. Yeah, exactly, man.
Yeah,
I'm stopped.
They're gonna try every other method too. They're not going to just do it in a pool, because if they did that, then people might be able to point it out. So they're going to do some stuff on strings, and they're going to do stuff they're going to fool you every different way, so you can never pinpoint it. So people should look at that too. And I mean, it just needs to look at the space, call it industry or whatever, but just look at that since it's been around, and look at everything you've been promised and continue to be promised. And we were promised in 2017 that Elon Musk was going to be having 2 people fly around the moon in 2018, and of course that won't come true, just like everything else that they promise you. So hopefully my words echo in your head as every year goes by, and as every year you're promised for have any of you guys seen that stupid commercial that's on, I don't know, I see it on Flat Earth videos when I'm watching them, there's a guy there for Wix saying he made a website for a hotel in space? Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
No hotel. I see the elevator, the moon elevator.
Oh no, this is an ad for an actual hotel in space that they say our first guests will be launching in 2022. And it's just so funny because it's such an easy lie. If you want to be a liar and you want to make money from that, then you just need to dangle space on a rope to people, and people fall for it.
Was that the one we covered that day, Jaron? About 720,000 a night or some ridiculous price?
Oh no, this one is it's $750,000 down payment. I think it's $22 million for
Yeah,
a trip.
total. Yeah, total. I think they
Yeah, so-
averaged it out. It's like 8 days, and it came out to be some absolutely insane number per night.
yeah,
But
it's just ridiculous. And
yeah,
if just when they tell people and they say, "Oh, it's a refundable deposit," well, great, you're making a $750,000 payment to somebody. If people don't understand how interest works, it's the way that Richard Branson lives the lifestyle he does. I mean, he says that he's had 800 people pay him $250,000 already for his craft that's never gone to space. Well, look at how much money is made off just the interest off that much money, and realize how easy of a scam it is, even if he ends up paying everybody back. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. In fact, they can even make it the flight over the poles. And when I mean, I know that everyone are aware of this, but the web page, which was made on Wix,
Right.
which is, but that was an official page. In fact, CNN Travel are talking about the flight over the poles, and in fact, I'm showing right now the official site of the CNN. And when you go to the over the pole, which called the Polar Express, upcoming flight now, 41 years after that, the such flight, blah 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 blah, and you click it, you go over the official, and you have, I mean, what's going on, man? You're gonna rent a room in the moon, but you don't even make it a flight here on Earth.
Right.
yeah, they're
Come on.
pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic.
And I like because the ticket, the start ticket is 11,911, or 11,900, I mean, they are all you just need to wake up a little bit, and you're going to see the sign of these people everywhere.
Yeah, it's
everywhere. In every detail, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, just down payments from people for Virgin Galactic. If he says there's 800 people and $250,000, that's $200 million, and the interest rate on that, if at 2%, is like $4 million. So I mean, it is a good business if you want to get into business. Is just tell people that you're going to take them to space in the future, and that you're taking some sort of down payment, and take the down payment and then give it back in 4 or 5 years. I guess that's what all these guys are doing, and I only say that because that's what's happening in every case.
Yeah. You have one flight, 11 hours with 6 miles. Another flight, 11 hours with 6,000 miles. Another flight with 11 hours and 6,000 miles. I mean, you have the 33, the 666, it's to flight in circles.
Right.
I mean, what's going on, man?
Yeah, absolutely absurd. Okay. All right.
I'm stop sharing.
Yeah, you stop sharing, and I will go ahead and kick back over to the other thing, and let me reshare you guys. There we go. Okay, you guys should be seeing my share screen. Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward a little bit. And Jaron, I know that you saw this, Zero. I don't know if you did or not, but I wanted to show this to people because it absolutely cracked me up. The way, this is just another example of the way that people try and discredit not just flat Earth information, but many of you are familiar with Bart Sibrel, and Bart Sibrel is the guy that produced the two movies, A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Moon and Astronauts Gone Wild. And even though Bart is not a flat earther, he certainly is fully aware that nobody ever went to the moon, and that was a stage act from the get-go. But, in an effort to try and discredit Mr. Sibrel's work, National Geographic strikes again, and they did a special, and you're not going to believe this. In fact, I can't even do it justice. I'm going to have to play about 6 or 7 minutes of this just so that you can see the kind of crap that people do to try and discredit something. And ultimately, if you're paying attention, what they actually do here is they prove 100% that Bart is right and that it was shot on a stage. They absolutely prove it 100%. They make up stupid straw men and ridiculous arguments like, well, we have to go out to the desert at night and then we have to use these searchlights because, that's the only way we can emulate the sun. It's like, well, as Bart points out, well, why don't you just shoot it during the day and see how the shadows work, right? Well, the reason that won't work is because if you shot it during the day with the sun, then you would not get any intersecting shadows. However, when you have a studio light in close proximity, and all you have to do is have the subjects that are in front of that at slightly different angles from that light, and of course the shadows are going to then cast in a different direction. So ultimately what they do in their effort of trying to debunk this, they absolutely verify 100% exactly what Bart is saying. And like I said, this is too good to not share with everybody. So here, if you haven't seen this, it's going to be a treat. Darren, I know you have, but everybody, let's give this a listen, and I'll kick up the speed just, yeah, it's at 1.25, so it won't take so long. So here we go. Well,
first of all, let's just see what they're attempting to do here. The sun is about 93 million miles away. So if you go out at noon on a sunny day, or you look at two objects, these two telephone poles are about, I don't know, 8 feet apart from one another, you see that the shadows never intersect. It's impossible for them to intersect because the sun is 93 million miles away. It has a diameter 1,000 times bigger than the Earth, and it's going to cast light evenly on any surface on the Earth. The shadows will fall in the same direction forever, all the time. And that's why when you look at pictures that were taken in a television studio, such as the moon landing pictures were, and here's an example, I believe this is from Apollo 14, you can see that you have an astronaut shadow going at 12 o'clock and a shadow of a rock over here going at about 9 o'clock. And they're only, about 5 feet apart from one another. So this is simply impossible to be taken by sunlight. You can even do a little side-by-side comparison here, and you'll see that this is simply impossible
not to
have been
mention
taken
the
with
hot
sunlight,
spot.
which means it was taken with electrical light, which means it was taken in a television studio, which means they're on Earth, which means the moon landings are fake. So this beleaguered attempt that we're about to see to disprove my movie goes something like this.
To test these conspiracy claims, we relied on our own technical knowledge as filmmakers to create a lunar set.
Oh, pride comes before a fall. They're boasting about what great filmmakers they are and how it makes them an expert. Uh-oh, they're in trouble.
We chose the Trona Pinnacles, a desert area 4 hours from Hollywood, the home of movie making. Our moon set will be used as a backdrop, not to fake our own lunar landings, but to challenge the hoax theories. And though we can't duplicate the intensity of the sun...
Oh, they can duplicate the intensity of the sun. You know how you do it? You wait 12 hours and go to the same spot and use the sunlight to simulate sunlight. But they're using electrical light to simulate sunlight. You see this? They say they can't duplicate the sun. Sure they can. They just wait 12 hours and shoot it during the sun, right?
Here in the night desert, our single studio light is powerful enough for our experiments. By testing some of the most famous conspiracy arguments, can we put the lunar fraud theories to rest?
Yeah, they're going to put them to rest. They're going to prove that they're true. So what they're doing is they're using an electrical light to simulate the sunlight to see if the shadows intersect or not. Real interesting, huh?
Once and for all. The morning after the shoot, the negatives are developed at a professional processing laboratory in Los Angeles.
In our experiment in the desert, we shot a variety of photographs using different film formats. In this 35mm photograph, we see that the shadows of the crew members in our single light source very distinctly converge together. In fact, there's almost a 90-degree difference in the apparent shadow direction.
Okay, so he's saying, look, we simulated the moon pictures and they intersect, therefore the moon landings must be real. Hello, everybody. They used an electrical light to simulate the moon pictures. And just like I said, they do intersect at 90 degrees, which proves that the moon pictures were lit with electrical light. Do you see this? He actually proves that the moon landings were lit with electrical light, meaning that they're fake, all the while he's trying to convince you that the fact that the shadows intersect with an electrical light means that the moon landing pictures are real, when it's that very evidence that proves that they're false.
These results directly contradict the conspiracy claims. The results of our photographic experiment appear to be overwhelming.
Okay, they again said it contradicts the conspiracy claims when it does the exact opposite. It proves that the moon landings were shot with electrical light. I mean, this just boggles my mind. And when I point this out to these and other producers who were previously going to have me on the show, who paid me in advance, they refuse to have interviews of me aired, even if they're already spent tens of thousands of dollars paying me for it, flying me, putting me up in hotels. And they, once I contradict the story that the moon landings are real and prove it, then they don't have that evidence on the program. So how can the National Geographic actually be interested in finding out whether the moon landings are real or not? I mean, it's really, really amazing. So there you have it. I mean, we can look at it one more time. Let's just take a look at it.
And though we can't duplicate the intensity of the sun here in the night desert, our single studio light is powerful enough for our experiments. By testing some of the most famous conspiracy arguments, can we put the lunar fraud theories to rest once and for all? The morning after the shoot, the negatives are developed at a professional processing laboratory in Los Angeles.
In our experiment in the desert, we shot a variety of photographs using different film formats. In this 35mm photograph, we see that the shadows of the crew members in our single light source very distinctly converge together. In fact, there's almost a 90-degree difference in the apparent shadow direction.
These results directly contradict the conspiracy claims.
All right, people out there, can you even believe this? I mean, how stupid do you have to be to not see that they absolutely just proved him 100% right? We're going to use studio lamps to prove that studio lamps weren't used to shoot these pictures on the moon, and we're going to come up with exactly the same results as you would if you use studio lamps as claimed instead of the sun, because we can't use the sun, heaven forbid. You know, we'd have to wait 12 hours for that. I mean, oh my God, talk about a new low in stupidity.
Yeah, and I agree for the most part on it, but I do think, well, sometimes my opinion of Cybrell is a little less than stellar. So I kind of worry about him. Like, I don't like that he said in there that they paid him tens of thousands of dollars. That was weird, because I really don't think National Geographic sent Bart Cybrell out for an interview and paid him tens of thousands of dollars. That's just what he said. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, his claim is that, I believe Cybrell's claim is that multiple studio lights are what cause the crossing shadows. So it's kind of a little iffy. It's almost like Cybrell's trying to play a different direction here by saying, well, they just proved that it was done in a studio. But I believe his claim is multiple lights cause crossing shadows. His claim was never one single light source causes shadows, because that wouldn't be the case. If you had one single light source, the shadows shouldn't cross. So
But
I
they
feel like
did.
but they did, which kind of throws you for a curve. But then if you look at that picture, go back just maybe a second or two at the most when they're showing, that picture, one, there you go. So that picture, to me, I mean, what are they trying to show there? They're saying that those shadows will cross? Is that what they're kind of saying?
Logically, if you extend them out, they will cross.
Yeah, they look like they will, right?
Yeah.
And do you believe that that is possible with a single light source? I don't even think that's possible.
Well,
So
it,
I think
it depends on how broad that light source is. Remember, that was a really wide studio light. If you saw a picture, let's go back here and look at the actual studio light. And it's a really, really wide studio light.
So if if the sun is supposedly so much bigger, then we would see that happen on Earth, but it doesn't happen. That's why I got kind of thrown for a loop here. Is I do understand what he's saying, and I do agree with you that they kind of proved in their own roundabout way that it was taken with a studio light. I think kind of Bart Cybrell jumped on that and said, oh, look, they have proven my claim, but I believe his claim is that multiple studio lights cause intersecting shadows. I don't think I've ever heard him say, oh, they're using a studio light, which would cause intersecting shadows, because if you have one light, it really shouldn't. They did show it, though, towards the beginning somewhere, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. I'm trying to find it. It's like, but yeah, it was a fairly wide light. So that's the only thing I could think of. But the point is, and I'm not trying to defend Bart or anything, but I think that may have been a misspeak, and I think what he meant to say is between what they paid him and all the effort, because they'd already shot it and all that, maybe that was, and I agree, he did literally say that, but I listen to myself on the show and I misspeak all the time, and I hate it when I do, but I know I do, and stuff happens. That's the way it is. So
it's still how they do this. It's the same thing. It's the same kind of problem where I'm not sure that they're attacking his beliefs or his claims. The things that he's saying make the moon landing. They just went out and put a studio light. Number one, his whole complaint about the sun is absolutely correct. You can't go and say we can't simulate the sun. It's like, no, you absolutely can simulate the sun. Go out during the day and do this test, and you will see that the shadows intersecting is not possible with the single source of light being the sun. They go out and show, oh, but when we use this one studio light, it is possible. Well, if that's the case, then it's very possible that the entire moon landing was done with a studio light, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it was.
And it was.
Yeah, and it was. And it may very well have been multiple studio lights as well.
It probably was. At times it certainly looks like there's reflection of one, and you can see that this light direction is going the other way. So yeah, I think, and this is the thing, they're not going to use just one light or two light. It's going to be faked in many different ways so that you can never pinpoint it.
Yeah. In fact, I believe it's, come again, the scale problem when you determine things like the source of the light to be 93 million away because you have parallel shadow, because you are just looking at a portion of the Earth being illuminated by the sun. So of course you're going to have always parallel shadow in that position of view. But if you have the possibility to go up and go really, really up, you're going to see that the shadows are, spread out in different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I'm trying to say is, can I share the screen quickly again?
Sure, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is, for example, if we take this scenario, I just create really quickly a light source, which is this tiny point here. Let me just select it. This tiny point is a light source, and we have 3 pillars here. And if I am Cyril, coming to the ground and say, hey, look how the shadows are parallel, you can see there are parallel shadows. But because you are so small and you're just looking in this part of the Earth or the neighborhood or whatever, but when you start going out, it's like it's been proved a million times, but I mean, this is also have parallel shadow, but are in a radial direction. And of course, if you go miles and miles away, you're going to see these 3 pillars producing parallel shadow, but in the opposite direction of the first one. So when you look that kind of situation, when the people talks about, no, here, look, you have parallel ray lights, for example, when people like Wolfie and that kind of sharks, I don't know how it's pronounced really well.
Jerks.
The jerks, thank you, man, thank you. Let me just come here to God rays in my folders, because here we can see people talking about like, hey, look, this is a parallel sunlight, sun rays. No, man, it's not parallel. It's parallel because you are looking so small portion of the Earth. But if you take this picture and you start extend it to the side, you're gonna see like a radial
They're not
shadow. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Let me just illustrate very quickly.
You're saying if you just extend those lines, that they will not only parallel, but they'll actually grow out away from each other.
Exactly. For example, if let me just do something like this. If you start doing things, let me just come here and do something quickly. If you start looking, that is going to happen. This is what is going to happen. And if you keep standing, I make it really quickly and not to scale. But if you are able to take this and really go away in the perspective, you're going to see finally like there is a point of light here spreading off the rays. But if you are so small and you come here and say, hey, look, this is a parallel rays, because you are just looking this portion of the Earth. So that is why the people get confused. That is my opinion based on my studies. Of course, I can be wrong. But, if you start adding perspective, you start adding, the focal length of the perspective point, that kind of things, the exit point, that is gonna have that perception. But it's just a matter of perspective and so how small you are, looking just at a tiny portion of this. So look, how many miles are you looking from here? It's just, you can see the whole picture.
Right. Yeah.
Nothing. That's just that my opinion.
Yep, that makes perfect sense.
Okay,
Beautiful.
stop sharing.
Man, I wish I could run 3D software like you do, Hiro.
Me too.
I wish I could run it. Period.
Jealous.
Yes, very very jelly. All right,
Thank you.
so let me kick back over on my screen share here. And okay, so cool. So let's go ahead, and I think that's all I have on that. I did have something if Morgal was going to be here. I wanted to talk, but maybe I can wait until next week when Morgal comes back. But did you guys by any chance see that Is Kavanaugh Really Christine Ford video that he did?
No, I didn't.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, well, I'll just kind of touch on it really quick. I was so blown away. This kind of reminds me of, I mean, we've all seen the comparison of Obama, you know, with Osama bin Laden in the face. And that's pretty intriguing, I thought, right? Because the facial similarities are really, really similar. But then apparently this even came up in front of Congress where this guy, the Supreme Court nominee Kavanaugh, and his accuser detractor Christine Ford are the same person, right? And this, they even mentioned this in, you know, at these hearings in front of Congress, right? Which I thought was pretty crazy. But then Morgile takes these things, these pictures, and does a comparison. I mean, the facial features are absolutely identical. The
Yes.
eyes appeared to be a little bit dropped, but that, of course, would be because of the refraction and the glasses. Now, the teeth are totally different, but of course, anybody could snap in and out a set of dentures, right? You know, making the teeth look different. But I looked at this, and it absolutely blew me away, you know, when John was doing this. And he's like, you know, I don't have any dog in this race, but it is kind of interesting when you look at this. And, you know, he goes back and forth. The lips are the same. The nose is the same. Everything about it is absolutely the same. It just trips me out. And if this is true, it's like, my God, is there no limit to what they will lie to us about? And of course, we already know that because they're lying to us about, you know, the shape of the earth. But you see stuff like this all the time. Like, you know, another thing that is kind of like this, if you've never seen this, is Miley Cyrus and Justin Bieber, right? You've never seen this. This, you know, this kind of trips me out too. It's, I mean, they look so much the same. And it's like, you know, if Hollywood is doing this, you have to wonder why? Or is this just a really, really big, huge, you know, coincidence that they do stuff like this? But I don't know why they would do this at all. But apparently they do, and that's really bizarre to me. So I don't know. I just thought it was interesting, to say the least. And yeah, crazy. Oh, great. What did I do? Oh, I put it up on the other screen. Didn't mean to do that. So,
But it's it's a regular procediment in the military, guys, you know, faking and you know, changing personalities. I mean, when you're going back to the history, you know, I don't know which is the name for me in English to say, but when you make surgery, aesthetic surgery, that comes from the military guys. You know, the first was made by trying to recover the bodies of the wars of the war. You know, when you are in the war and you lose the leg, or maybe some bomb explode and rip apart your face. So they do it, and I think one of the most iconic cases is the McCarthy guy. You know, for me, when you start looking all the evidence, and not just the evidence, you have the testimony of the actual ex-wife of Paul McCartney saying that Paul McCartney, you know, obligate her to get suicide 2 times, and she you know, broke with him and make a divorce. And she say on television, I have a box with information that nobody wants to get out to the public, you know, public hands, because the information that I have there, it's not going to be, you know, supported by the fans and the media. and maybe I don't express myself too correct, but they are doing this situation of changing phase from the end of the Second War to our days. And you have an iconic movie called Swordfish with John Travolta that show you that kind of thing. So of course you have a lot of that kind of operations that they are using. But for me, I don't know in the case of Justin Bieber or the Obama or whatever, but it's not impossible thing. I mean, you have all the tools to make it. The witness, when you convert into a witness of some kind of big situation, you can ask for changing your personality, your face, your ID, and blah blah blah. So
yeah. Yeah, it's just to me it's just interesting, why they would do that, especially in putting it out, so overtly, if that's what's happening. And of course, I don't want people to be accusing me of trying to muddy the waters by even talking about this. I find it intriguing, and I find the amount of these quote unquote coincidences to becoming a little bit more than what I would consider a coincidence. I'm just curious of the mindset behind it, exactly what the elite are thinking by doing stuff like this. So who knows? But yeah, I'll let Morgal comment on that a little bit more next week when he is back. So
I'm surprised. It just seems like they're testing people. The New York limo accident won't say anything beyond that, but it just seems like they're testing people to me.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Oops, I'm still setting things. I screwed up and closed all of my tabs that I had open. It's like, oh, you dummy. I don't believe I did that.
Oh no, and you really have a big open windows.
Yeah,
tabs.
Crap ton of them.
Yes.
Okay, so there's the one I wanted to get on that. Okay, so.
Oh man, I have really special footage to share about this topic, because it was my satellite from my country. I pay for that satellite, man.
Okay.
SciComm 1A.
All right. Well, let me kick this off, and then we'll let you share that really quick, Hero, since it's related.
Of course. Take your time.
I'm sure. Now this absolutely astounds me. And I'm going to go ahead and play this. Let me kick this down in speed a little bit so that we can look at it a little closer. But this is the SpaceX Falcon 9 launch that took place a week ago on October 7th. And I look at this, and let's go ahead and just play it. I look at this, and it floors me because, first of all, the first thing I have to say about this is I have never seen any other space launch filmed that looks anything like this at all. And of course, the one that was seen from Arizona looked just like this. It's like, what is this? What is this? What is this? I mean, this doesn't look like a rocket. I mean, I'm not even sure what this is. But of course, the most obvious thing is look what it's doing. It goes up and it goes straight down. And, people can say, well, that was the main body of thrusters, coming back down to Earth. But if that's true, then why is the engine still running, right? Why is it still being propelled straight down? I mean, to me, that is completely over the top. But it seems to me like, just like I kind of put forward the hypothesis that, when we see these ISS transits going in front of the sun and going in front of the moon, I honestly wonder if this goes back to some sort of holographic technology. I have never seen a rocket launch that looks like this ever. And it's only been the last few that we've seen stuff like this. In fact, the first time I ever saw any phenomenon like this ever at all was on something that was called the Norway Spiral. And we had this kind of bluish white light kind of spinning around up in the sky. And this took place the night before Obama got his Nobel Prize, right? So it seems to me that, this is some sort of new holographic technology because I've never seen a rocket look like this, and I can't even explain what exactly it is that we're seeing other than whatever we are seeing it appears to go up and then takes one hell of a sharp turn and goes straight down. What do you guys think about this?
Me personally, because I saw it, and I guess that might add to my opinion, but I don't think it's holographic. I don't think what I saw was holographic. What I think they're doing is launching a device, rocket, if you will, into the water, and I think that every sign shows that. And even this video that we're watching now shows that it's getting up there. It's using its second stage or whatever to get, for me to be able to see it where I saw it, it needed to be, probably 100,000 feet. So it doesn't surprise me that we can get something up to 100,000 feet.
Well, we can get balloons up there all the time.
Right. So if they can, blast with their rockets and put some firepower behind it, it doesn't surprise me. And, a lot of people are saying that they've seen the thing land. And so they say, well, Jaron, you said that that's fake every time they land it. Well, if whatever they're landing is really a rocket, then I have opinions about what it's made of and what's inside it, and that it might be a helium balloon. And I don't think they're landing 40,000 or 50,000 pound rockets. Now, even if they are, doesn't mean they're going to space. It's just a distraction. It's just, it's something else for you to look at and ooh and ah at. And I'll be the first to admit that when that thing took off and I saw it get up high enough where I could see it from 250 miles away, I was oohing and ahhing a little bit, because it is kind of like, wow, look at that. Again, doesn't mean anybody's going anywhere near space or that space travel is even possible.
Right.
They can launch things high in the air. And they can make it look like that when you get it up at right after sunset or right before sunrise.
Right. I guess my biggest concern is, maybe it's not a hologram, maybe it is. Who knows? But what I can say is that any other rocket launch that we've ever seen previous to this was not so dazzling. It wasn't so bright, and it didn't, have this unbelievable, light show. Essentially, it's almost like they launched something up in the rocket and maybe they put a different type of chemical in there that's fluorescing and causing this to happen. But this is a new phenomenon, is what I'm saying. This is not something that we have ever witnessed before, in this type of dazzlingly bright, blue and white light show. So I guess I'm wondering why they're doing this. Unless they're just trying to make it more visible and more spectacular so that more people think that we're actually launching these out into space. But when you get time lapses like this that clearly show it going up, it's not up for maybe more than a minute or so, and the thing is definitely on its way back down and on a rather steep arc down, So I mean, what are they changing here?
Yeah, for me it's the same. I mean, it's like being really changed the technology from launching rocket, because this kind of situation, you can see how, light up the clouds and, these colors, this fluorescence chemical, maybe fluid they are using or some kind of, we know, you have this company called Star Alley, which make, artificial meteorites to, drop it anywhere in the earth, and they're going in fact to using in the Olympics and that kind of public events. So they have from I can say early 90s or 80s, whatever, but they are creating fluorescence material based on the friction with the atmosphere or with the chemical spread on the atmosphere, taking maybe the electrical charge on the atmosphere, whatever. I mean, they have that kind of technology. It's, you can evidence in this kind of rocket launches. But for me, when you start compare this, you can clearly see the trajectory, and it's not much. It's just the ICBM suborbital rocket. It's just that. I totally agree with Geran talking about even if they can landing this kind of rocket doesn't have that doesn't mean they are go out to space. The only thing is. Of course, you must be, believe that they can do that, because after all, after 60 years of faking space, which supposedly you land on the moon, you land on Mars, you land on meteorites, you land on asteroid, you land whatever, even in the roof of your house, of course you're gonna have that technology. I mean, why the people get so surprised about landing the part of the rocket that SpaceX, take off the main engine and landing on the ground, which is something that they must be achieved must early in time. That is,
Well, yeah, that thing goes like a mile or two away and then comes back and lands. But 50 or 60 years ago, it went 248,000 miles away, landed with people inside of it. People got out, played around, got back in, and it launched again. So what this isn't even impressive 60 years later. This should be done 60 years ago easily.
Exactly. Thank for interpret my my words, because I'm start to sorry guys for
translators sometimes.
yeah, thank you, man, thank you. And can I share the screen?
Yeah, hang on just a second. I want to point out
okay
really quick here.
Let's go.
The other thing, and David
go.
Weiss just actually brought this up in the chat, is look at all the planes that are flying around. We've got this in super slow-mo. That would never be allowed, in the vicinity of a rocket launch. And not only that, why is it, you can see the rocket actually take off here, from right down here. It's going to pop off here in a second. There it goes. There it is. There it is. There it is. And the lighting is nowhere near that dramatic. And you would think that it would be the most dramatic in the heaviest part. It doesn't actually start lighting up until it gets up here. And again, why do you have all these other airplanes flying around? Why is that allowed? It just, nothing about this seems right, to have so much other air traffic in there, and why it only starts this when it's, kind of up here in this area, where you start getting this really dramatic light show. So there's just so many things about this that don't seem right to me. Not to mention the fact that it dives right back down into the ground. That doesn't seem very spacey-like, but yeah, go ahead and share, Eru.
Okay. Let me just share screen with sound and tell me if I am sharing now.
You are sharing and you are presenting.
Okay, so I, like three or 4 weeks ago, talking with a friend of mine who have a channel called To the Most High, but in Spanish. He live in Texas, in fact, and he is a university professor of literature. I don't know which is the name in English. Sorry, he's a professor, of course, but he have a channel talking about. Yeah, thank you, man. And he has a YouTube channel, and he sent me this company of I think it's from Chinese company or Japan company called One Space. Did you know it? The One Space company.
I don't know.
Okay, but this guy, for me, because in our days, if you want to really get rich doing nothing, put some rocket company and live the good life. But so these guys are doing that. I mean, they supposedly they want to put satellites on orbit with the own rocket launch and things like that. But they share something that, of course, it's all digital, but Japan style. I mean, everything is like a
Godzilla.
comic. Wait, Godzilla. So they put this, of course, the test of the rocket engine, things like that. But they put this video, and when I saw it, I say, this is what's happening, and this is the kind of perspective that you must be rich for understanding a lot of things based on the God rays that are radial, not parallel. It's parallel locally, but it's not, in the world scene, a parallel ray. And when you see from the this perspective how a rocket is launched, then you understand what is going on with all these rocket launches. So I'm gonna show you the One Space 010SX1 suborbital rocket launch. Supposedly see it from a satellite optical image, and that is why. Yeah. Please don't laugh. Don't laugh.
I can't
Okay.
help it.
Hey, your respect to Japanese people, man. They
Okay.
just land, on the asteroid. Come on, okay? So here you can see what is going on, really. This is a suborbital rocket, okay? So they make zoom from the satellite, and after making zoom from the satellite, supposedly, you can see what is going on here. You have the arch, the people are here looking it, and then it's just a ballistic missile going straight out of a view. And that is what's happening. That is why they pointing to the sea, to the ocean, with a big rocket. So I take this image in because it's just that tiny 30-second rocket. Here you can see from the ground, and from the ground is regular from the ground view.
It was kicking over on the side.
Sorry for the volume.
It's horizontal. And
exactly.
It's going down.
Yeah, but it's going down. Not yet. You look going down.
It could be a perspective thing. Yeah, I'm honestly waiting for people to come back and say, "You guys are idiots. That's your perspective thing." Just like we claim that is the sun. You know, as it goes over the top and goes away from it, from our perspective, it appears to go down. And I'm willing to entertain that. However, I would much rather get an admission from a glober that actually happens first.
Yeah, but it's going straight and down, because after all, you get off of fuel, so you're gonna go down, but you cannot see it because the rocket is going away. So when you put this together, you're gonna start seeing this kind of situation. Let me just explain the comparison. Here we have those two videos from the Japanese company, and here we have some NASA footage from a rocket. And first of all, I want to leave clear, when you see these distortion lines here, and of course, this is not a GoPro or fisheye lens. This is a radial lens, which is a little different because you're going to have more like straight to the side lens effects. Let me just illustrate here in this project that I made quickly. And I feel like Emmett Brown in Back to the Future doing all these maquettes, of this miniature, and because I did it on the live show, so that is why it's maybe a little poor in interpretation. But here I have a city, just a bunch of buildings, and I have that camera that you can imagine there is attached to the rocket, right? And if you look at geometrically, without any kind of lens or air distortion or refraction of the light or whatever, you're going to have just this straight horizon. But that is not what happened in real life. I mean, the cameras, all the time, we know that the cameras have radial distortion, among other distortion that you can have, specifically because you buy a fisheye lens or perspective lens, whatever. So what is happening in the rocket launches, you have the situation when I use Arnold render because it's, Hollywood standard is one of the most powerful render engine out there, which recreate a real life situation in terms of lighting and volumetric camera lenses, whatever. So when you add a little tiny distortion like 0.05, which is something that all the cameras have, you're going to see immediately that the horizon starts to curve. And this is not, I repeat, this is not fisheye lens distortion. Fisheye lens distortion, if I put in real time, that is fisheye lens distortion.
Right.
So that is the difference between fisheye lens and radial distortion, which is something that every camera have. And let me show really quickly one more time the picture that I always show. But that's just, for the leave clear that we are not taking this out of context or, for any kind of crazy, thoughts. It's just based on what the optical science tell you. The resulting image will obviously be circular. It doesn't matter if the camera is a rectilinear or if the lens is rectilinear or is a fisheye lens. Always you're gonna have this behavior because the lens is concave, so the light reach any point of the concave lens in different speed and different distance. So that is gonna have like a circular image all the time. So that is what is happening in this situation when you simulate a real lens inside of computer, when you want to go out of the geometrical behavior, because in real life, one thing is the geometrical world and the other thing is when you combine with air, distortion, with refraction, with lenses, blah, 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 blah. So what you see here is that distortion. These are cameras attached to the rocket, and you can see clearly how this rocket are just like a missile. It's just like a ballistic missile. When you see this behavior and the rocket is not going over 30, 40 kilometers, I don't even think that can reach 40 kilometers. Why? I don't believe that, because here you have the layer of ozone layer, and ozone layer reach up like between 20 and 30 kilometers. And for example, this rocket and this rocket, they never go up from that layer. And when you see sounding rockets, which are really lighter rocket that reach the 120 kilometers, you can clearly see the ozone layer below. And here we have almost in the middle of the camera. This is because the camera are rotated. So this rocket are not going more up than 30 kilometers. That's my opinion, I repeat. But you can see the radial distortion here. But the rocket is doing this, is doing a straight path out of view. It's just that for me. So when you compare this with the actual SpaceX rocket launch, you're gonna see here is this picture. Up right, you have the Japanese rocket. Down right, you have some Iridium satellite deployment seen from the ground. And these two in the left side are the new ones seen from different cameras. And you can clearly see what's happened. I mean, it's just a straight flight out of view. And of course, it's also going down.
Yeah.
But that is what is happening. And then you can see, this is an old one. This is from the 2017, seen from the airport of LA. And here you can see what is happening. It's just a straight path out of view. This rocket never go up and then even reach the 30 kilometers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's clear. I mean, and you can tell that by all the amateur footage. And it's just hard to believe that people will make any excuse and say, or they'll look at the little dials on NASA or SpaceX's, shot, where it says that it's going X thousand miles an hour and X altitude. And it's just like, there's no way. There's just no way that those figures are accurate.
Exactly. And if you go to the feature of ICBM, you can clearly see here, supposedly, if you want to believe that this is possible, you can reach, this is a suborbital space flight, blah, blah, blah. All the suborbital space flights are reaching the Kármán line, which is 100 kilometers maximum. That doesn't mean all the ICBM are reach that kind of height, but this is the most you can go. And supposedly, when you go to the possibilities that you can reach, they tell you that you can define 5,500 kilometers away. So that is more than enough to see how the rockets are then recovering in the open sea.
Yes.
They are following the rockets. The rockets are get out of view, and the most probable thing is that the rocket go to the sea and they recovery because they have that kind of employment and and facilities to do that. So what they are not going to do?
Yeah, you know,
Recover the rocket.
you have to wonder how long it's going to be before they dream up another thing. You know, kind of like, you know, when they were launching out of Florida and on the East Coast, and of course then they've got the Devil's Triangle, you know, going on down there to try and scare people away from that. Just kind of makes you wonder if they're ever going to come up with something like that for the Pacific Ocean. It's like, oh no, all these boats are starting to disappear and these planes are starting to disappear over the Pacific. It would be interesting to see, but who knows?
Yeah, I believe the same. You know, the Bermuda Triangle, that is the NASA triangle.
Right.
It's not the Bermuda, you know. So here you can see how the divers go down. They put some cables because NASA loved cables, you know, from the 60s. And they put some cables on the rocket. And of course, I don't say that that is the rocket that we see early, but I mean, when you put all the pieces together, they have the techniques, the equipment, the people, the you know, everything to fake it. And when you go to the real footage, you cannot say that the SpaceX is going up into space because you see it's a straight suborbital path behavior. It's just that, it's a missile with
Yep.
enough fuel to get out to the sea.
Yep. And then it's dumped. Amazing.
Exactly.
Okay.
And of course, it's really sad that you guys don't understand Spanish because because I saw all the you know, like the show, you know, the marketing show explaining why this satellite is going to be so important because we are going to see, you know, real time float statistics and, you know, all that kind of the satellites are, you know, are gods. You know, at this time at this point in time, a satellite is like being a god because they can do everything. And this guy is asking to this guy how the satellite is cooling in the thermosphere because the satellite that we launch is an open electronic satellite. And this guy start to put so nervous and they talk about this situation of in English, you know, to deliver the heat into space.
Right,
But
to radiate it out into space.
yeah, but the guy start to say, but well, in the space you can radiate. So how they solutionate? He said, in this other part of the satellite that you cannot see, we paint it with a special paint, white paint, or the heat goes to that. But that is one of the most NASA inventions. They create, they paint the new Curiosity, the new rover to land on Mars with a special paint coat for cooling the radiation.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I need to get some of that for my house in the summertime. I'd save thousands on air conditioning.
Yeah, and in fact, we made that joke. You know, in real time, we designed this. I don't. You cannot see it, but we designed here the new NASA paint white coat. You know, the new
Nice.
thermic kit from NASA because they solve all the radiation problem in space painting white the equipment. There are there are
Amazing.
magics. Yeah, magic. So that is what I want to share.
Okay.
I stop sharing.
Okay, cool. I'll switch back over to mine. That's so funny. And let me share my screen for you guys. There we go. Okay, you guys should see it. All right, cool. So let's move on. That's so funny. All right, so I titled the show obviously Flat Earth, It's Not Rocket Science, and the reason I did this is because I have been seeing an ever-increasing amount of arguments over, of course, the same old argument about whether or not rockets can fly in space. And even though this is something that I have definitely covered in detail before, I just kind of think that it's timely at this point to just cover it a little bit, at least an abbreviated coverage, to represent the argument as to why rockets cannot work in space. Okay, and believe me, I am fully aware that this is a really hotly debated topic, and to me, it's kind of a no-brainer. But once again, it's very interesting to see the obfuscation, especially on NASA's part, that goes on around this particular subject. So, oh, was that message to me, Jaron? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, never mind. All right, so let me continue on. So anyway, so I wanted to address it, and I'm going to start out by kind of presenting the mainstream side of the argument. And of course, the mainstream, you know, they make fun of us and say, ha ha ha, no, you don't have to have an atmosphere to push off of. Rockets don't require anything to push off of, and they actually say that. And I have lots of documents that say that they don't require anything to push off of. And it's like, okay, well, even that claim in and of itself breaks every law of physics that we know. But obviously, they're going to then go on to claim that what it's pushing off of is this incredibly fast hypersonic jet stream, right? Or exhaust stream or whatever that's coming out from the back of the argument. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play two quick clips here. One is from this girl who actually has a big YouTube channel called Vintage Space, and this is like got to be the ultimate NASA fangirl. And she's going to go on and she's going to do a fairly decent job of trying to explain why what we are saying is not true. And then after that, I'm also going to show a video by a anti-flat earther by the name of SciStrike and what his arguments is. And then I'm going to show that indeed NASA actually backs these two up. So let's give the ballers their due. Let's let them present their case. And then we will go ahead and rebut this. And I promise, I'm sorry, I know this is redundant and repetitive, but like I said, I just think this is something that really needs to be addressed again. So let's let Miss Vintage Space, purple hair, tell us what's going on with this, and then we'll go after that. So unmute and go.
Fly in a vacuum. Let's unpack that. This has got to be one of the most common questions I see asked both in the comment section in my videos and around the internet. How can a rocket fly in a vacuum? Now, it comes from the misconception that a rocket launches off the Earth because it's pushing off the ground, and that it flies into orbit because it's pushing off the air to get there. It's easy to see where this misconception was born, because most of us interact with a car, or specifically a car engine, in our daily lives. A car can drive because of its combustion engine. A small amount of gasoline is added to air that enters your engine as you drive down the road. That air and gasoline mixture is compressed and then ignited with a spark. The force of the gas exploding because it's compressed and it lit with that spark forces exhaust out the back of the car. We have forward momentum because we're also using the friction of the ground. Depending on what gear it's in, the car moves forward because the wheels turn. So let's take this car engine as an example. We know that for something to burn, we need a fuel and a spark and a source of oxygen. We have that fuel, it's gasoline, we have oxygen from the air, and we have that fire, we have the spark in the engine. But we also have movement because of friction on the ground. Now, this is where people think rockets...
We also have movement. Now, first of all, let me point out that she's kind of implying here, you know, as she did at the very beginning, that the car exhaust blowing out the back tailpipe is actually part of the propulsion, right?
No, that was man, amazing. Compare a car which is attached to the ground. Let's put the car in the air and make all that combustion. They're never gonna move, you know. Or we have flying cars like in Back to the Future. I don't know.
Right. And of course we know that's absolutely preposterous, but so her point is a little bit, I guess, is that, you know, even the exhaust coming out the tailpipes is pushing the car along a little bit, you know, but, you know, you got to wonder, what about all those old cars where they had the exhaust pointing down at the street?
Yeah, what about electrical cars?
So,
I mean, what about the water cars like the Steve Mayer did? I mean,
Exactly. So I won't pick on her too much about that, but I did kind of chuckle, that she kind of included that as, well, yeah, that appears, or at least she appears to be saying that that's part of it. But we know that it's really obviously the uh, drive chain at going to the differential, which is then going to the wheels and a drive wheel or whatever. We know that. Okay, so let's go on and let's let her make her point here.
Fly by pushing against something the same way a car pushes against the asphalt. But rockets don't work the same way. Instead, rockets harness the power of Newton's third law, which states that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. The force of the exhaust leaving your car does push it forward, only the car is so heavy and there is so much friction from it sitting on the road that it doesn't actually do anything. Not to mention, we have things called brakes that stop the wheels from turning. But a rocket has a lot more fuel and a lot more combustion happening, so the reaction is strong enough to lift it by virtue of Newton's third law. Let's use this balloon as an analogy. So with the car, we have the force of the exhaust leaving the back of the car, but it's so heavy and there's so much friction against the asphalt that it doesn't move. So it's the same way if I release a tiny bit of the air but hold the balloon steady. There's air escaping it, but it's not moving. So let's now say that this balloon is a rocket. This is the body wherein all of the combustion is happening because it's just fuel tanks and oxygen tanks. And this is the engine bell, where all of the thrust is going to escape the rocket. Now, with nothing keeping it down, with absolutely no friction on it, granted there is air friction, but it's pretty minimal for the purposes that we're talking about right now. If I release this balloon, the force of the gas escaping will propel it forward, exactly how it happens in a rocket. Should we try it?
Yeah, let's try it, except what she fails to point out here is if you put that balloon in a vacuum and let it go, that balloon ain't going nowhere. It's going to discharge and it's going to drop to the ground and it won't move forward at all. Of course, depending on how much volume there is inside of the vacuum, right?
Right. If it's put inside of a little box and then do it, it's going to push off the wall and go somewhere.
Right, push off the wall or push off the air that has been discharged into the vacuum, thus, raising the actual pressure inside the box. But, she never mentions that. But let's go ahead and let her continue. Wow,
that's
amazing.
Exactly how a rocket flies. It's just that force of the gas escaping from the end of it that propels it forward. So that's part of it. But if you remember from our car analogy, the car needs air to burn that gasoline, and it gets that air as you drive down the highway. That's because we have air all around us. Really, it's burning the oxygen. And of course, there's no oxygen in space, and there's less oxygen as you get closer and closer to orbit. So how can a rocket possibly work in space? Well, there are tanks inside a rocket that have both of the elements you need to start combustion. There's always a fuel tank or a propellant tank and an oxygen tank or some kind of oxidizer. Take the Saturn V for an example. It burned a mix of rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen. This meant that no matter how high it got, it could always have that strong reaction because it had everything it needed to start that reaction and maintain it on board. A rocket that fires in a vacuum does the exact same thing. It has both the fuel and the oxidizer on board that it needs to burn. Of course, it doesn't have to be kerosene and liquid oxygen. There are different mixes of propellant and oxidizer that lead to the same reaction that allow a rocket to fly in space.
Okay, so from this point forward, she's then going to go on and talk about ion drive, which of course is something that, barely works, and even that is questionable. But, we're not going to go there. So basically what she has now inferred is that, she's kind of addressing the argument of a lot of people that have said, well, you can't even burn anything in space. And to that, I say, well, yeah, that's true because there's no oxygen. But as she most astutely pointed out, you don't need oxygen for things to burn, especially if you take your own oxygen source with you. Sure, absolutely. We've all seen that. We've all seen that demonstration where the guy puts like a rocket engine inside, or the material that a rocket engine burns, inside of a vacuum, tries to ignite it with a laser, and it won't even burn. Of course, you let the air in, and it immediately goes up, right? And that chemical reaction then creates a large volume of gas, not mass, but a large volume of gas that is ejected and causes this great pressure differential. Great, wonderful. So first of all, she's kind of straw manning that because, You know, that's not the argument. Really, I mean, some people may go there and say, well, you can't burn anything in space, but really, it's a moot point because you can add oxygen to whatever you're burning, and that kind of takes care of that problem. So we'll give them that, all right? No problem. So she goes on and explains that and says, well, they carry lots of oxygen, lots of fuel, propellant, so that's why rockets can fly in space. Now, the one thing that she doesn't address is what this guy here addresses, Mr. Systrike, who is really an idiot, but I figured I'd use him because he's a big, you know, anti-flat earther ball guy. And of course, in this, he makes fun of people that are claiming, you know, that it can't work because there's nothing to push off of, you know, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And then he gets to kind of the NASA argument. Okay. So let's listen to what Mr. Systrike says about this, and we'll move forward. Oops, unmute.
They all say the same thing. There's nothing for the rocket to push against. Here's an illustration that shows why the creepy fellow was incorrect. See the stick figure to the left? Let's give him a name. We'll call him Stick Figure on the Left. He's standing on a rolling platform, which gives him a relatively frictionless environment. When he throws this 37-pound medicine ball to his friend, whose name is Stick Figure on the Right, he is pushed backwards with the same force that propelled the medicine ball forward. It's quite obvious that the friction argument, or the pushing against something argument, is entirely invalid in this case, because the instantaneous action of throwing the medicine ball is what gave the instantaneous reaction, or application of force, to our friend Stick Figure on the Left. Air resistance, or pushing on the air, would not be sufficient to cause the kind of rearward motion that Stick Figure on the Left would experience. Now I know what Creepy Fellow would say in response. He would say, yes, but in this case he's pushing against the medicine ball. To which I, of course, would respond, you mean sort of like the rocket pushes against all of that exhaust gas that it's throwing out of its exhaust nozzle.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe if I take a really strong push with my hands into my chair, maybe I lift up in the air. It's a, you know, I mean.
Well, he does go on. Actually, let me move on. He does actually give a little bit more of a demonstration to kind of illustrate this. So let's give him his due here. Let's go forward and let him finish this.
The following video shows a real-world example of this that you can perform yourself. Watch the scale while the man applies an upward force on the weight. The equal and opposite reaction provides a downward force that makes him appear heavier. The converse occurs when he lowers the weight. This is exactly how rockets can work in space in a vacuum with nothing to push against.
Oh, but it isn't. Okay. And we're going to illustrate that quite well. So this is so funny, kind of like the rocket is pushing on its own exhaust gases. And that is indeed what they're kind of trying to say. So what is it really? So let's make sure that this guy's not full of crap, even though I've just said he's full of crap, and he is for the most part, but not in this argument. Let's see what Life Science says, and they kind of sum it up in a very same way. Okay, so they say, NASA says this principle, well, let me actually go back a little bit. When a rocket shoots fuel out of one end, this propels the rocket forward and no air is required. Well, first of all, rockets aren't shooting fuel out of one end. They are shooting out hot gases that have been ignited and created by the fuel that is in it. They're not shooting the fuel out. So Life Science, bad on you for even missing that. But then they say, NASA says this principle is easy to observe on Earth. If you stand on a skateboard and throw a bowling ball forward, that force will push you and the skateboard back. However, because your weight on the skateboard is heavier than that of a bowling ball, you won't move as far. That that's the challenge engineers face when designing space engines. Yes, a small amount of thrust does push the spacecraft forward, but it often takes a great deal of fuel to get going anywhere quickly. More fuel means more weight, which adds to the cost of the mission. Blah, 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 blah. All right, so he's not lying about NASA's position, and we're going to reiterate that even on one other thing here on Quora. From Robert Frost, instructor and flight controller at NASA. And I'm sorry, I think about flight controller and I think about Curious Life's video of the girl that's on the talk show saying, "Oh, like it's so cool! Like as a flight controller, I can like totally make the ISS rotate, and all I have to do is push a button, and it's so cool." All right. Anyway, that's what I think about when I think about flight controllers at NASA versus the submarine guys, right? Where they repeat every order back and everything is absolutely, razor military precision and all this stuff. It's really quite a humorous contrast, right? So Robert Frost, instructor and flight controller at NASA, says, inside a rocket, there is a combustion chamber in which we ignite a fuel and oxidizer. They burn, converting into a very hot gas that wants to expand rapidly. But the chamber is rigid and there is only one small hole, so the gas is ejected through that hole, out of the back of the rocket. Newton's third law tells us that for every action there is an equal but opposite reaction. Imagine you're on roller skates and you're holding a heavy cannonball. What happens if you throw the cannonball in front of you? If there is a force propelling the cannonball forwards, there must be an equal and opposite force propelling you backwards. But you won't move backwards as quickly as the cannonball is moving forwards because you are more massive. This concept involves momentum. And then they give the equation for momentum. Momentum P equals the mass of an object, m, times its velocity. Momentum of a system is conserved. That means that without outside influence, the total momentum of a system is constant. So you throw the cannonball and change its momentum by giving it a velocity in a particular direction. Your change in momentum will be equal and opposite. Great, wonderful. Okay, that's super to see and all that. Let me see if I can get also then to a picture. I closed my things before and I'm not seeing my picture of my bullet here, but let me actually tell you what they're describing here. And it's interesting how they avoid this, without saying it, because what they are talking about here is a phenomenon known as recoil. Okay, well, what's recoil? Recoil is something that anybody that has ever shot a gun knows full well, how that actually works. And I think the bullet picture is here. So basically what happens on recoil is when you shoot the gun, the hammer hits number 5 here, which of course is the primer, right? And the primer then ignites the gunpowder, right? And shown in figure 3 here. So the primer ignites the gunpowder, and what happens is there is an instantaneous reaction that converts this gunpowder into a lot of gas, a lot of high volume of gas. And as that gas expands, the pressure inside of the case of the bullet causes the bullet itself out here, which is kind of crimped into place here at the top of the case, it gets to a point where it overwhelms this friction that's holding the bullet in, and the bullet takes off down the barrel and then ejects it at about 1,700 miles an hour out the front of the gun, right? So what happens?
Be careful with the Coriolis effects, man. You can lose your target.
That's right. And then you got to worry about Coriolis effect and all that stuff. But we'll kind of leave Coriolis out of this because
okay, sorry.
So then what happens? Well, the same force that pushed that bullet out, right, is going to have, according to Newton's third law, a reactionary force, right? And that reactionary force is called the recoil. And the recoil is the energy that is in opposition to the forward moving bullet. There's going to be an energy pushing back against the frame of the gun, right? And that frame of the gun then translates that energy to your hand. and your hand then translates it down through your body and connects it to the earth that you're standing on. Not that you necessarily have to be standing on the earth, because most people weigh more than a bullet. Okay, so you know, generally the mass of your body offsets the bullet quite easily. Even though I got to tell you, after firing some 3-inch nitro load shotgun rounds or 7mm Magnum shots, those things develop. Wow, they develop some kick. All right. So anyway, so what we're really talking about here is recoil. All right, and what causes that recoil, the reason that you feel it, is because you are acting in opposition to the mass and the velocity of the bullet moving forward. Okay, great. So the bullet then is working against your body. That provides the conditions to satisfy Newton's third law. Super. All right, I hope everybody's with me so far. So we now know that there has to be some sort of reactive element in order to propel something upward or forward. There has to be some sort of reaction. This is where most of the flat earthers are saying that, well, there's nothing to work against, and therefore a rocket cannot possibly propel forward in Earth. So what's the response to that? Well, no, the ballers say. They say, no. What we are working against, and the mass that we're actually working against, the force we're working against, is in fact the gas that is being discharged out of the back of the rocket at hypersonic velocities. Okay? Okay, well, I can kind of see how that would work to some degree, but the only problem with that is you have to literally be ejecting enough mass at a high enough velocity to offset the thousands of tons of rocket that you're propelling straight up, right? So first of all, you have to overcome the inertia of all those thousands of tons sitting on the ground, and then you have to not only do that, but then you have to propel it through the atmosphere to a velocity of, you know, up to 17,000. And in fact, if you're going to leave Earth orbit, then you have to increase that velocity to Mach 33 or 25,000 miles an hour. Wow, that is a big job. Where are they going to get all that mass to offset mass and velocity? Well, they seem to think that they are creating that mass simply by shooting the fuel out, like one person, like Cora said, or excuse me, like, yeah, it was Cora that said it, shooting the fuel out the back, which of course is preposterous, because in order to do that, first of all, you have to eject not just equal mass, but you have to actually have more mass between the mass and the velocity to be able to offset that inertia of the thousands of tons of rockets sitting there, right? So again, they're saying that they never use the ground. They don't need to use the ground. They don't need to push off of anything. They don't need to push off the air, even though any other type of locomotion absolutely does have to have a medium to push off of. If you're in the water, you've got to have your propeller pushes off the water. If you're in a propeller airplane, your propeller is pushing off your off of the air, right? And not only that, the higher you go, the less efficient that air actually becomes. So again, this whole claim that they're ejecting all this mass off of the rocket is preposterous. Okay, now why is it preposterous? Well, first of all, if rockets weren't working off of air, they wouldn't need to nozzle off this gas to bring it up to hypersonic velocity. Okay, so what's happening here, it's like, think of it in terms of a hose, right? You take a hose, you put your thumb over the front of it, and you squeeze down, and basically what it does is it restricts the water from coming out, but even though the water is still flowing the same amount in the hose, because of the fact that you have restricted the area that it's coming out, you are accelerating the water speed, and of course then you can squirt all the way across the yard, right? That's a really good analogy for that. And so too is exactly how the rocket engine is designed. And they even talk about these specific nozzles, coming out of the back of this rocket, that they have to optimize for certain levels in the atmosphere. This is all right here in Wiki, guys. You don't have to take my word for it. Take the CIA's word for it and look it up on Wiki. All right. So what it's telling us is that, obviously in order to do this, to get these gases up at these hyper velocity speeds, they've got to use this nozzle, right? And they can't change the nozzle size, so they have to kind of set it up for an optimum altitude, right? A simple nozzle design is only optimal at one altitude, losing efficiency and wasting fuel at other altitudes. Well, gee, guys, why would that be if the air is not part of this equation? Why would the viscosity of the air matter if it's not part of this equation? If it's not pushing off of this? If it's not providing some sort of reactive force? Well, that's one big bugaboo right there. The fact that they're even using this and claiming that, well, yeah, our efficiency is going to be decreasing, as we go into certain elevations because we can't change the diameter of the nozzle to accommodate for the ever thinning atmosphere. All right. So first of all, we've already blown that all to heck. Now, another thing that completely blows this into the water is something that is called the Joule expansion, otherwise known as free expansion. Okay. Now, I'm going to try and give you a little bit of a description of this and kind of get your mind wrapped around this, but let's read what the CIA says here in Wiki. And it says the Joule expansion, also called free expansion, is an irreversible process in thermodynamics. I believe it's the first law of thermodynamics specifically that's addressed in this, in which a volume of gas is kept on one side of a thermally isolated container via a small partition, with the other side of the container being evacuated. The partition between the two parts of the container is then opened and the gas fills the whole container. The Joule expansion, treated as a thought experiment involving ideal gases, is a useful exercise in classical thermodynamics. It provides a convenient example for calculating changes in thermodynamic quantities, blah, 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 resulting in an increase in entropy of the universe. Okay? So basically what they're saying here is that if you have gases that are expanding into a vacuum, right, there, it is instantly dissipated by this free expansion idea. Okay, and this thought experiment is only taking two areas of volume that are equal to each other. Now think about this for a second. What if you took this one side of pressurized gas and put it out into the infinite void of space, right? Do you think that there's ever going to be anything that can make any difference whatsoever? Well, the answer to that is no. So let's just say that, let me get to my notes here. Hang on just a second.
Maybe you can reach Pluto.
Yeah.
You can reach the Voyager 2.
Right. So if free expansion isn't enough, obviously, to invalidate the theory of rockets producing a force in a vacuum, there is also a result from thermodynamics. Work equals pressure times change in volume. Okay. W equals PV. All right. So what that means is essentially if a pressure of a system is zero, then the work done by the expanding gas into that system is zero. Gas expanding in a vacuum doing no work agrees with free expansion. This can also be understood as the gas meets no resistance as it exits into the vacuum and thus transfers neither heat nor energy to its surroundings. If the gas loses neither heat nor energy, then it has done no work. Okay? I don't know how much clearer that can be. In other words, what they're saying is that, yeah, you can ignite something in that rocket, and just like the bullet, right? Okay, so let's draw an analog of the rocket to the bullet. So the rocket itself is the bullet, okay? The fuel on the rocket is the gunpowder, okay? And the ground underneath it and the air is akin to the frame of the gun, right? Something to work against, all right? So what they're saying then is that the rocket fuel once it is ignited and expands and goes into this hypersonic gas, right, being ejected out of the back of it, they're saying that that is providing the mass to work against, right? That is utter horse hockey, because the rocket fuel is doing nothing other than exactly what the gunpowder in the bullet is doing. It is providing the energy, not the mass. It is providing the energy, right, to, propel the rocket up. And this is, of course, when I'm talking about this at this point, is in the atmosphere. And it is also working against that. The hypersonic gases are working against the atmosphere and also working against the ground. When you get up into space, because of the Joule expansion or free expansion of energy and the first law of thermodynamics, there is no work done any longer, because that energy is instantly dissipated into the huge vacuum of space. Therefore, we are right back to the argument of there is no equal but opposite reaction. Newton's third law is not satisfied, and that rocket ain't going anywhere. Same thing as if you take a bullet up into space and you take away the gun and just fire off that primer. Well, what's going to happen? Well, the gas is going to expand, assuming it can, which you'd have to put some sort of oxidizer in there, and it's going to blow the bullet kind of forward, but it's also going to push the case back. But see, that's the bullet working against the mass of the case, and it really isn't going to go very far at all. But what we're talking about here is the rocket doesn't have a case up there, right? It has nothing to work against. It's just saying that this hypersonic acceleration of gas is giving you the mass and the velocity necessary to offset the rocket's movement and make it go forward. And of course, there's a million other problems with this that I'm not even going to address. But the bottom line is again, they're trying to violate Newton's laws of physics with their nonsense explanation of recoil, because it is recoil. And they even say that, they give you a perfect example of recoil. They tell you, well, sit in a chair, sit on a skateboard and eject that medicine ball or a bowling ball, whatever, in one direction, and you're going to go the opposite direction. That's great. So if you think about that and apply that to a rocket in terms of mass, then you also have to be carrying that mass up with you, or at least something that's going to emulate that. And unfortunately, the hypersonic gas is not going to do it. And so you would actually have to have some real mass to push off against, which doesn't happen. The only mass that you have is this expanding volume of gas, which is instantly dissipated into the free expansion of space, right? So there you have it. Not only does it not work on a recoil basis, in space, because you don't have real mass to push against, but the Joule expansion is telling you that the gas, because of the fact that it is instantly being dissipated, no longer there is no longer any work being done, right? Doesn't lose any heat, doesn't lose anything like that. So again, that is the rebuttal to that, and I don't think that there is a reasonable rebuttal that they can come back with, other than saying, "Nuh-uh, yes, sir, the hypersonic velocity of the gas and that little bitty mass is enough to offset that, thousands of tons of rocket that's cruising around in space." Of course, granted, by the time the rocket or whatever gets into space, it has shed most of its mass. In fact, all of it, because it's all in the Pacific Ocean. But, we'll humor them, and we'll go with that. But now you have to also remember that in 1969 through 72, they supposedly did this, went all the way to the moon and sat down on the moon. And of course, the moon is only 1/6 gravity, right? 1/6 the Earth's gravity. So yeah, the LEM would not have to lift off as much, but there's also absolutely no atmosphere whatsoever. So they seem to think that all of a sudden generating this hypersonic blast out of the back of the LEM, which of course there's no evidence of that, all you see is a bunch of color sparks fly, is enough supposedly to propel that that module up into space. So the whole thing, if you think about it critically, is utter nonsense. Okay. And, I'm not the only one that has covered this. I've covered this before. Brian Mullen has done an excellent series on it. You can look on the web for arguments going both ways. One of the best examples that I have seen and best debates I have ever seen on it comes from this place right here, Clues Forum. And they have got like 54 pages of this discussing where they have engineers, physicists, everybody. And you know what their conclusion is? That the propulsion in space is simply impossible given the terms that NASA has given us, and all of their silly, ducking the issue and their excuses. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. What do you guys think about this? Do you have any take on it?
I totally agree, man. I mean, there is no properties on the space, like Tesla said, and anytime you see this kind of battle on internet, they never show any kind of even close experiment. Really, I mean, it's more attempt this debate from the YouTube. YouTube guys than NASA. NASA just give you explanation on text, but they don't make any kind of. They have this huge vacuum chamber. They never put on the rocket inside there. For example, I mean, they never put nothing. And the guys on the internet, they just reading books and repeating experiment like the guy on the skateboard dropping the ball. But anytime you want to recreate this, you cannot recreate it. In fact, the guys like Scobie Labs and those guys, they are just using a tiny tube. Of course, you cannot check if there is any kind of leak of air. They are using just simply vacuum pump, which you don't even get close to the real vacuum of space. So it's just like theoretical explanations, but they need to use these analogies based on skateboards or cars or dropping balls, because they can recreate in real life. In fact, I just going to share the screen once,
Sure.
one more time. But I mean, for example, when you see, because anytime that you listen this kind of explanation, they think in terms of really big rocket into space. But for example, this wash machine, which called supposedly the lamb in the space. When
Oh
this
my God, that does look like a washing machine.
yeah, of course, it's here we call lava ropa, cloth wash. So when you see this kind of whatever it is, you're gonna see turn it and look the nozzles, the small nozzles in comparison with all this big space. And I don't know even where they storage the propellant and the oxidizer, all the combustion tank inside here. And this is going to be is going to make a little turn to the left, to the right, but you're not going to see any of this nozzle turning on. So what happened there? I mean, how is propelled? I mean, where is all this theoretical thing?
But stopped as well, is once it starts propelling in one direction, you have to shoot out gas opposite, even if you believe in their fairy tale. It's just nonsense.
Exactly, man. I mean, it's let's talk about all the scales, not just the big rocket, for example. Address this. What's happened here?
Yeah.
I mean,
you can see there's nothing coming out of the thrusters.
No, even close. And like you say, Gerard, if you turn to the right, you need to compensate to and look how sharp the rotation is.
Dink just stops right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so and everything of this is resumed. I don't have here the picture, but it's like hey dude, look all this calculation that bring us to the moon. Right. Yeah, but look that shit. That is what
You
we
shouldn't need anything
see.
more. You should be able to use your head, and it doesn't matter what numbers somebody throws together. Go look at the LEM and tell me that thing landed on the moon. And if you do,
Exactly.
you believe in numbers and fairy tales more than you do your own eyes in reality. Bob, what would they say? You know, I think you killed it great right there. When if there's no work, then there's no recoil. But what do you think they would say, or what would happen if you did shoot a gun while in orbit? Say you're an astronaut on the ISS doing a spacewalk, and you were to shoot a gun. What would happen?
Well, the bullet would absolutely take off. Well, all right. First of all, because there's no oxygen, obviously the gunpowder couldn't ignite. But let's just say we had some special oxidized gunpowder that is like an M80. It doesn't need air, right?
Okay.
If you've ever like flushed an M80 down a toilet, you know that they blow up just fine. But anyway, so let's just say that we have this gunpowder then that's in there that can ignite in a vacuum. And so what's going to happen is first of all, the astronaut's going to be holding, let's say, a pistol in his hand, all right, and maybe he's going to be up against the ISS. Now, between the mass of the astronaut and the mass of the ISS, obviously there's going to be enough mass then to offset the mass of the bullet, going in an opposite direction. So if you're asking if I would volunteer to stand in front of that bullet, no, I wouldn't, because it would shoot you and it would kill you. Perhaps maybe not with the same efficiency as it would down here on Earth, but there's enough counter mass to make that bullet go and you would get hurt, believe me. So,
okay, but what if you're traveling at 17,000 miles per hour when you shoot a gun with no reference frame? If you're in space and the bullet goes 1,700 miles per hour on Earth, how does it propel in space? At what speed?
Well, you'd have to have, well, first of all, now we're talking about changing inertia, right? You've got the inertial movement of 17,000 miles an hour in one direction. And of course, inertia is going to resist heavily changing direction without any significant amount of applied force, right? So with something going that fast, now if it was just barely lumbering along, it wouldn't take a whole lot of energy to overcome that barely moving inertia to change its inertial direction, right? But when you're talking about something the size of the ISS, that is, I don't even know how much it supposedly weighs, hundreds of tons or whatever, and you get that amount of mass traveling at 17,500 miles an hour, it is going to take one hell of an energetic discharge to change its direction, right? To overcome that inertia coming forward. And of course, this is supposedly being done all the time. And not only is it being done all the time, but in this alleged free fall going around the Earth, it is also keeping one side of the ISS constantly facing the Earth itself, which means that they've got to be rotating that constantly. It's not like if they just let it go, like if it was, going forward, because then it would actually go out, it would seem to stop at a point, right? And then it would go backwards, fly backwards, and come around. Which to me, of course, has a lot of huge problems with it anyway, but a lot of people can believe that. But anyway, to answer your question, if you had something that would actually ignite the gunpowder in space, and sufficient mass behind it, yeah, you don't want to be in front of that bullet.
Interesting.
Yep. But
I think ISS weighs, if I remember looking it up, 500 tons or something.
Right. But see, the other thing I need to stress is that the exhaust, the gas, is not the bullet, right? And the gas, it would take a crap ton of gas to even come close to the bullet, right? To the mass of the bullet. So they say, well, that's okay though, because we hyper accelerate it, right? It's like, yeah, you may hyper accelerate it, but that still is not going to come anywhere near. And of course, those equations, by the way, are suspiciously missing from any NASA documentation. And believe me, I have looked all week for it because the bottom line is it's just silly. Those equations, if you actually analyze them, there's no way that they could possibly provide all of that force to not only get it up to that velocity, but then to make any inertial changes at that velocity. It's preposterous. It's absolutely preposterous because, again, they are not actually like the bowling ball. They're not taking that mass of the bowling ball and pushing it away. They're trying to say that they're doing it with the mass that is contained in the gas and hyper-accelerating the gas. It's nonsense. So, anyway.
Okay, guy, I stop sharing.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, let me cut back over to my other share. But yeah, I find this a really interesting subject because to me it's common sense, and I think to most people it's common sense. And if you want to go through the equations, go look at Brian Mullen's video. He did a super job. It's Balls Out Physics episode 5 is the one you want to look at. It is in the GLOBEBUSTERS 24-hour rotation, or you can just Google it or YouTube it and find it. And like I said, he's not the only one. The best argument that I have found, hands down, would be the Clues Forum. And this has consisted of several engineers. There's even an aerospace engineer in there, engineers, physicists, scientists, whatever. And it's under Faker in the Orbit, the ISS, which is great. And granted, and I'll tell you right now, these guys are not flat earthers. They think it's silly, even though I think there's a few of them that are becoming more and more sympathetic, hoi polloi being one of them, I think. But yeah, so you go into Apollo, the general discussion, then Apollo and more space hoaxes, then does rocketry work beyond Earth's atmosphere? These are non-flat earthers discussing this, and they absolutely annihilate this argument from every possible way with all the math, all the physics, everything. So, you know, my opinion is one thing. You don't have to listen to it. Research it yourself. And I think that, you know, and beyond that, you know, get away from the math and the physics and all that stuff, or not the physics, but the math and the mathemagics that describe it, and the fancy, you know, descriptions of recoil. And like I said, I find it amazing. They never, ever, ever actually call it what it is. It's recoil. Period. End of story. But they don't want to use that because then people are going to say, but yeah, there's masses that are being offset here, not gases. Masses, not gases. And yes, gas does have mass, but not anywhere near. And think how much gas it would take to offset, you know, 10,000 tons of rocket or 1,000 tons of rocket or however the hell much that that is.
But some gases, the gravity doesn't pull to the ground.
Well, there is that.
Even they have mass.
Yeah. And of course, then you have to go back to, you know, again, the show that we did a couple months ago, Sunday Mass, and they don't even know what the hell mass really is. Especially now, it works pretty good here on Earth, right? Because what's mass here on Earth? Well, it's weight, period. It's weight in kilograms. That's mass. You start taking it away from here into a hypothetical, theoretical, gravitational free, mass-free outer space, and all of a sudden, the concept of mass gets extremely abstract. And that's, of course, is why they had to, you know, make up all this stuff for space to make this work, their physics work in space. Because the bottom line is, it simply doesn't. And I will elaborate on that greatly in November, guys, because it's a joke. It really is. All right.
Or you can wait and rent a room in the hotel on the moon. You know, 2030, 2025, you know, you can wait that and you're going to see the spherical Earth.
Just wait.
Just wait. Just wait.
Excellent.
Be here before you know it.
Yep. So, all right, one last thing, and of course, today's show obviously is going to do the 3 hours, and then we'll probably start maybe next week cutting them down or whatever. But I had tons of material, and I have a ton more, believe me. We could go 5 hours. I always over-prepare. I don't know why I do that, especially knowing that, you know, my co-hosts are full of hot air, too.
That is passion, man. That is passion to what you want to do, to what you do.
Yeah, it is. Because, you know, I find so much stuff, and I just think, my God, why can't people, you know, take note of this unbelievable amount of luminous evidence? This preponderance of evidence is massive. And yet, you know, they dismiss it, you know, and make jokes out of it. And that's the part that really gets to me. And yeah, so yeah, there is a lot of passion there. So last thing I want to cover before we end the show is this particular video, which just came out 4 days ago. And it's Wal Thornhill on gravitational accretion bites the dust. Okay, well, first of all, what is gravitational accretion? Well, they tell us that after the Big Bang, that a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, that nothing exploded into everything, and all this particulate matter just got blown at beyond the speed of light, even though they say the speed of light is as fast as it can go. But back then during the Big Bang, the speed of light was exceeded by a factor of 10,000 times easily. But all that aside, we'll accept that because we have to, because there's no proof for it whatsoever. So let's just accept it. And then all this matter is just kind of floating around in space, this newly created space, right? Which even space wasn't there before. So now we have matter that's floating around in this space that's all newly created, and suddenly this mysterious force of gravity is born, okay? And so this gravitational force starts causing one little bitty particulate to be attracted to another little bitty particulate, and they come together and they clap together, and it's like, wow, all of a sudden you got two particulates, you have the mass of two particulates, and now we're on our way to gravity. So that's going to attract a third particulate, a fourth, a 10 billionth, whatever, and all of a sudden things are starting to come together, like the Cavendish experiment, and this is called accretion, okay? So all of this mass is coming together and it is forming into balls, right? Because what else could it form into? It's got to be a ball because it's drawing gravitationally equally on all sides. Therefore, it's going to make a whole bunch of balls all over space, right? So this is the theory of, essentially in a nutshell, of how the universe came to be. And after the planets form, you have some matters. And of course, also, mind you, when this explosion happened, not only did it create dirt and dust, but it also created all these other elements, right? And some elements will attract together and create planets. Some elements will attract together with the ingredients necessary to become stars, right? But stars, in the case of stars, so much mass attracts that, and the object becomes so massive that it literally crushes itself under its own weight, and it sends this mass blob into a state of fusion, right? And bada bing, we have stars, right? That's the accretion process. Now, anybody with half a brain can think about that for a minute and think how ludicrous it is, but it has been the accepted model for quite some time, brought to us by the Jesuits, of course. And, people are kind of hanging with it. Well, now that people are really thinking and realizing the nonsense of gravity, and they're looking for other electrical presentations which are demonstrable, they have kind of, come up with alternate theories that work a whole lot better. But what's interesting about this particular video that you're going to hear, that's great, is that they have started to model this accretion process in computer models. And what they find is that the computer will draw mass together, and then it will break off and go off into all these little other particles. In other words, the computer model never reveals anything accreting to, turn into a planet or a star or anything like that. It's all been shown as utter nonsense. All right, and then of course Wall will come in and he will explain the electric universe theory of this. Now, a lot of people have asked me, well, Bob, if you don't believe that this is going on out in space, why do you promote it? And the answer to that is the reason that I promote it is because, as I have stated many times before, when you model things in plasma physics, it is scalable. All right? In other words, we can emulate this stuff on a very small scale, what's going on as far as what we're observing on a large scale, and we can actually recreate it in a lab. Right? So does that mean that it's actually happening out there in a big, huge, endless universe? No, not necessarily. However, what they are doing is they're looking at the ceiling or the firmament or whatever's going on up there. In my opinion, it is a firmament. It is a physical object. Okay? And they're seeing these processes that are behaving just like plasmoids in plasma physics, and they're able to replicate it. So that doesn't tell me necessarily that, you know, it's a big galaxy, rather so much as it's telling me that because of their paradigm that they're looking at it under, they believe that the universe is huge and infinite, therefore they're trying to put it in to that paradigm, which of course creates a whole lot of problems. But if you take it out of that paradigm, the physics of the plasma still is 100% valid, okay? There's no doubt about it. It's still 100% valid. So whatever is going on up there, I am convinced is something to do, is electrical, and it is interacting with gases. This gives us plasma. This gives us the plasma activities that we are observing. And this is where these theories, which in my opinion are valid, are coming from. And I think that even though they're looking at them on the wrong scale, they're not necessarily misinterpreting what's actually going on up there. That is why I promote Thunderbolts Project. And, you know, I've said many times, it is my hope that they will finally realize that this scale that they're talking about is pretty ludicrous, even though, like I said, yeah, it can be scaled up to things that big. But when you start talking about infinities and, you know, space being infinite, even the plasma physics can kind of fail, because then you're dealing with other problems about charge potentials. Okay, and I won't go into that today. That goes way beyond the purview of what we're going to talk about here. So I'm going to play a little bit of this video, and I'm going to let you hear what the mainstream, and this is the mainstream that has figured this out, has discovered about this, and how now the gravitational accretion process is just about out the window, because it cannot be backed up either observationally or experimentally. Let's give it a shot. Here we go.
Welcome to Space News from the Electric Universe, brought to you by the Thunderbolts Project at thunderbolts.info. New scientific reports provide yet another devastating blow to the standard theory of planet formation. In recent years, we've reported on a stunning series of discoveries that completely confound the more than 2.5 centuries old nebular hypothesis. The electric universe theory has always proposed that planets do not form from accretion in gravitationally collapsing nebular clouds. Rather, the Thunderbolts Project's chief science advisor, Wal Thornhill, has always proposed two mechanisms of planet formation. One is the formation of planets by the electromagnetic Z-pinch effect along the same filaments where stars are now known to form, and other planets are later ejected from the cores of the gas giants. The accretion hypothesis has failed both experimentally and observationally. As noted in a recent news report, according to the traditional story of the origin of the solar system, the planets formed slowly from accretion, as particles in the circumstellar disk clumped together to great pebbles, then slightly larger spheres, on and on until they reached their current size. But when scientists try to recreate this story with computer models, it breaks down. Rather than growing, these incipient planets tend to splinter after reaching pebble size. And today, new scientific research into the planet-forming conditions in so-called young star systems has delivered another shocking blow to standard theory. In a paper published in the journal Astronomy Astrophysics, scientists describe their attempts to determine how much material is present in the disks around stars that are thought to be only 1 to 3 million years old. When they compared their estimates to the masses of star systems that have fully formed planets, they realized that the so-called young stars did not have enough matter in their disks to eventually form planets. The conundrum is described in a recent Phys.org report, which states, "Until now, space scientists have believed that star systems form due to space dust coalescing into a star. Once the star gets going, a protoplanetary disk usually forms around the star. It is believed the gas and dust that make up the disk are leftovers from material involved in creating the star. As more time passes, the material in the disk tends to clump together until gravity takes over, attracting more of the material in the disk. Eventually, most of the material from the disk is incorporated into planets that orbit the star. But this new evidence suggests that there is not enough material in the disk of the average early star system to create the average number and size of planets that come to exist a few million years later. A very similar conundrum has been posed for the standard theory of star formation. In our electric universe, it is not a coincidence that stars tend to form in groups along spectacular snake-like filaments. Standard theory had originally proposed that massive stars would form in individual protostellar clouds. But consider these images of a stellar nursery in the aptly named Snake Nebula, where a number of stars are forming along the filament, and the stars themselves break up along a cylinder. This is in stark contrast to gravitational theory, which predicts that a center of mass exists toward which all of the surrounding material in the cloud tends to move and to congregate to eventually form a star. What's more, just as a fatal deficit of matter is observed in the disks about stars to form a typical number of planets, scientists studying the Snake Nebula found that the material needed to be drawn in to form massive stars is far less than gravitational models predict. In 2014, the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics issued a press release which stated, previous theories proposed that high-mass stars form within very massive, isolated cores, weighing at least 100 times the mass of the Sun. These new results show that that is not the case. The data also demonstrate that massive stars aren't born alone, but in groups. The team also was surprised to find that these two nebular patches had fragmented into individual star seeds so early in the star formation process. They detected bipolar outflows and other signs of active, ongoing star formation. Of course, the detection of bipolar outflows does not match a gravitational infall model at all. However, as Wal Thornhill has proposed in his theory of electrical star formation, when material is drawn in radially into a filament and begins to form a star, if the energy stored in the material falling towards the star exceeds a certain amount, it will discharge, causing protostellar jets which go out along the axis of the filament, which has also been observed. Yet another aspect of star formation that fits far better with the electric universe is the astonishing abundance of binary stars, an admitted intractable problem in standard astronomy. In the next episode of Space News, Wal Thornhill will explain why the double-lobed form seen throughout the cosmos is the product of the predominant electromagnetic force shaping matter at all scales in the universe. We now offer this brief preview of his presentation.
On August 24th, phys.org published The Origin of Binary Stars. It makes the admission that the origin of binary stars has long been one of the central problems of astronomy. It's been found that protostars and young stars are more likely to be found in binary pairs strung at intervals along a filament inside a molecular cloud. About half of the binaries are in elongated core structures, and they conclude that the initial cores were also elongated structures. One of their most significant major conclusions is that each dusty core of material is likely to be the birthplace of two stars, not the single star usually modelled. This raises the real issue that astrophysicists don't understand how either the filaments or the stars are formed, something the plasma cosmologists have shown for half a century or more. Here's an image taken at sub-millimetre wavelengths of a star-forming core, showing that it contains two young stellar embryos. The caption says, astronomers have concluded from a systematic study of very young cores that most embryonic stars form in multiple systems, and later some of them separate. The problem is that astrophysicists are using a gravitational accretion model based on the concept of a centre of mass, which doesn't lend itself to preferentially producing pairs of stars. Meanwhile, the plasma cosmology model is electromagnetic, driven by a linear twisted pair of Birkeland current filaments. It's an inherently binary phenomenon. In the electric universe, stars and planets are formed along the Birkeland current filament by a powerful and long-range 1 over the square root of r electromagnetic scavenging force acting on the diffuse dust and gas in a molecular cloud. This compares to the puny short-range 1 over r squared gravitational force, which cannot form a filament anyway. On the basis that nature doesn't do anything the hard way, gravity just isn't the answer.
Yep, that is it. And like Ken Wheeler is so fond of saying, Mother Nature is pretty simplistic. Mother Nature tends to do things the easy way, and of course our scientific theories of how the universe is formed is anything but that. And not only that, it's based entirely, or at least 99%, on pure conjecture, pure mathematical hypothesis and theorem. It just simply, it's a big guessing game. And this is why I've said so many times before, astrophysics, astronomy, it's a joke. Okay, they are going nowhere with this, and until they start, getting the idea that gravity does not reign supreme. In fact, gravity just isn't there at all, and what we're calling gravity is actually an electrical type of force. They're never going to get any further other than making rampant and wild speculations. So the bottom line is I love these guys, and I also love the fact that even the mainstream is now realizing how preposterous their models are, and they simply do not work. But you know what? The powers that be are going to keep pushing this and not let them stray too far away from it, because the second that it does, the entire house of cards falls down. And we then realize that, here comes a big branch of science dealing with the very creation of the universe itself, goes down in ashes. And then people are going to start looking at other things and realize that maybe these big fantasies that have been presented to us have no basis in reality and can never, ever, ever, ever be checked. So that's all I have to say on that, guys. But I just think it's pretty interesting stuff, and I think this is why Eero loves this as well, right, Eero?
Yeah, yeah. For me, I am not a guy come from the science world. I get inside all these concepts and studies based on the flat Earth. That is why maybe some people or a lot of people really give the thanks to the flat Earth work, because from that point of view, you start getting deeper and deeper into real science and real world situations where you can understand from the lie about the space and our cosmology to how the government works and who are controlling all the governments and institutions. So the range is really, really huge what you can learn. And when I start learning the electrical universe, that will be something that I never think about it if wasn't from the flat Earth situation. I really start to connect with Tesla, and which is something that I really knew, and is the most sensical model right now in our days. Of course, these guys are not flat earth, and maybe, like you said all the time, if these guys are really taking serious our paradigm, they gonna find a lot of ideas that maybe get to work together. But until then, I think this model is the most accurate, or at least more sensical.
Yes.
Than the gravitational model.
Yep, I totally agree. And like I said,
in fact, sorry, I'm gonna finish with this. In fact, we are still looking for an evidence of the one object curving time, space, and orbit around another. Because with electricity and magnetism, you can do that. But curving the fabric of space-time, which doesn't have any kind of particle to bend it, I don't know what you're gonna bend.
Exactly.
Show me a particle of the magnetism field.
Yep.
Just one particle of a magnetic field, which is there. You can take the magnet and see how it works, how it operates. Show me one particle in charge of that attraction and repulsion. Right. You cannot even show us a magnet particle. You're gonna show me a time particle?
Yeah. It's crazy. All right. Okay, guys. Well, I think that's going to be a wrap for us today. Yeah, great show, and I hope we gave you a lot to think about this week, because there's really, there's so much disinformation. We're being swamped by it from every possible direction. And, I wish that everybody could listen to all of the stuff that we present and really absorb it. But like George Bush says, I guess we're just going to have to keep repeating it until it sinks in.
Catapult the propaganda.
That's right. So, all right, cool. So, Eero, I know you have to take off and go to a party, so I will let you close out with anything that you have coming up or not, and then we'll let you go.
Sorry, no. In fact, yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry. In fact, I received a call from the birthday party. I have my birthday party of the son of my brother, so I'm gonna be there the next 2 hours trying to convince all of the party to the Earth is flat, and the guys also, and the little children. We're gonna make a huge party of flat earthers there. But no, I really enjoy the show. And for new things, well, we are going to talk the next week about our balloon launch. So be in touch with that. And the last 1 month I received, like, I don't exaggerate, but like 15 radio shows, interview.
Wow.
Yeah, but a lot, and with a variety of important radios. I mean, some radios are small, but some ones are big radio, and that is a really nice statistic to take into account how this movement is growing. So I was busy attending all this interview and finishing my presentation too. I really, I'm feeling like a child waiting for Santa Claus, or a NASA guy waiting for the moon landing with the conference,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Drew. Well, thanks for joining us today, and we'll catch you next week, and have fun at your party.
Okay, guys. See you the next week, and a big, huge, good words for the guys on the chat. Good feelings for the guys on the chat. So thank you for having me on.
Okay, cool. All right. And Jaron, so what do you got going? You gotta come out with another video, Jaron. I'm jonesing for a good journalism video.
I've got a couple in the works, but we are going to go live again tonight. And so if you want more of Eru is going to be joining me tonight, probably 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. So if you want to check that out, that'll be on my channel. That'll be tonight. And after that, just keep an eye out. Got Raw tomorrow night. David Weiss has been joining me, so he'll be back tomorrow night for another episode of Raw. Like I said, Eru tonight. And videos coming soon. So keep jonesing.
Cool. All right, sounds good. All right, and for me, guys, same old. I just kind of plug along and do my own thing. But I do want to give a shout out to Roxanne, the globalist denier. If you guys are not familiar with Roxanne's channel, she is currently kind of going on an activism tour right now, and I'm sure they could certainly use your guys' help and support in doing that. But again, these are the type of people that are actually going out there, hitting the streets, presenting the public face to face with our message. And I have a lot of respect for these guys. So I definitely want to give a big shout out to Roxanne, the globalist denier, and her crew that are doing this. And if you have not checked her out, I will put her link also in the show description today, so you can check her out and show her a little love and support. She's out there doing a great job, and very personable. Really like her. She's a sweetheart. So other than that, again, the Flat Earth International Conference, 1 month from tomorrow, the 15th of November. Sign up for that. It's going to be a fabulous time. You won't regret it, I'm sure. And, a lot of us can hardly wait for it. And it's just tons and tons of fun. And there's no experience quite like being around so many other like-minded people. So head on over to fe2018.com and sign up. And there's even a few discounts out there. I think Paul and the Plains got one. And gosh, I think somebody else did too. But there are a couple discounts out there. You can get like, I think 10% or so off of the ticket prices. So, check that out, and we'll be looking forward to meeting you then. So with that, we'll call it a show. Mods, thanks for keeping the chat a nice place to be. We appreciate all your efforts.
Thank you, Mods.
And we will see everybody next week. Until then, be good to each other. Don't lie to each other. Open your mind. There's truth inside. Peace out, everybody.
Peace.